Dad's doing all right? Yeah, they're just right there. Yeah. 6 weeks, he won't even know it's there. All right, if I can remember how to do this, we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everybody, and glad you can join us this evening. It's Monday, December 6th, 2021. Hard to believe Y2K was just yesterday, wasn't it? 4:30 in the evening, and we're going to go ahead and get started. We'll start out this evening as we always do. Well, before we start, everybody, if you got your cell phone, please put it on silent mode. We'll get started this morning. We start out with prayer and then Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to ask this evening that Commissioner Calkins lead us in prayer and Commissioner Peach lead us in the pledge. All stand, please.
Lord, we want to thank you so much for all the blessings you poured upon this county and this country. We thank you for letting us be in the greatest county, or in the greatest country in the world. And we ask you to be with our country. Lead us as a county in the right direction. Give us wisdom. Give us strength. And thank you for everything. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. This time I'll ask for agenda approval, and I'll start to my right with Commissioner Parker.
No changes, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to steal the thunder and be the first one to be able to publicly say that I'm so thankful to have Tom Danheiser here. For those of you that don't recognize the new face down there between DeVan and Brad, and we're just very thankful to have him on the team tonight. And so I wanted to take that opportunity, since the chairman asked me first, to say welcome aboard, Tom.
Thanks a lot. It's nice to be back. No changes, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Calkins.
No change, Mr. Chairman. I want to be the second one to thank Mr. Danheiser for joining us. We are excited to be working with him, and look forward to all the, we have great changes with the staff, and I absolutely am so excited about our whole team right now. And I appreciate y'all, and I look forward to working with y'all. And thank you, Mr. Danheiser, for being here with us. Judge, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Wright?
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anything, staff?
No changes.
Anything from Mr. Danheiser?
No items.
Anything else? All right, anything from the clerk? All right,
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
okay, thank you. And it's obvious that none of you guys have worked with Danheiser before, so I'll just leave it at that. So. Okay, at this time, we'll move for approval of the minutes, and they're listed there for you. We got 5 different minutes. If you, any changes or anything that you've seen in reviewing those past minutes that are on record. If not, I'll move for approval without objection. Hearing none, I'll pass the previous minutes. This time we have a presentation from VAR Beach Pier update. We got the legal beagle from the Beach Bum Law Firm here, so.
How about that? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board and Judge. I'd like to tell you that I've really enjoyed the opportunity to give you this annual update. We missed that in the past, and glad to have the opportunity to come back today. So we have a presentation for you that we'd like to present to bring you up to speed on what's been a very, very busy year at Navarre Beach. I'd like to start out with our mission statement, which is that we want to improve the Navarre Beach Pier experience for residents and for visitors, and we're trying to expand the facility to make it not just a fishing pier, but really a family destination for all of the people of Santa Rosa County. Just wanted to give everyone a little update on the way our contract works. It's a little bit different, a little bit unusual. We pay the county 101% of the revenues from the fishing pier, and so we collect all the revenue. We remit all of that to the county, and we also add 1% on top of that. We also staff the pier, so we provide all the staff and labor to maintain the pier. We maintain operations for water, for trash, electric, paper products, maintenance, and mobile restroom. We also pay the county 5% of our gross sales from the gift shop and the restaurant, including the bar area where we have all our alcohol sales. And I want to get straight to the bottom line. We're really excited to give you this report. In 2020, we paid the county $386,130.84 in rent and revenues. And in 2021, we've paid the county $789,295.60 in rent and revenues. Of course, that's still going, so this is based on the fiscal year, the October to September fiscal year for the county, and that represents a 104% increase in revenues to the county year over year. And it's been a great year. It's been a really busy year, really exciting out there, and we've really taken a lot of effort to keep the whole team going, to keep the project moving forward. Sales tax. The other good thing about that is that in 2020 we paid the county, we paid the sales tax of $160,270. In 2021 we paid $269,681. So again, that same time period we've increased sales tax revenues by 68%. And we've been able to do this mainly really with our focus on planning ahead. So we really manage this with data. We manage it as a business. We run the facility looking at trends, and we really knew that we were going to have this increased demand, increased visitation and travel. So we really planned for that. We hired for it, we recruited for it, we made sure that we were prepared for it, and that we saw that return to the county because we really made that effort to make sure that we could service the Santa Rosa County residents and all the visitors that came to Santa Rosa County. So, we can show you here that we were able to increase employment at the pier and also increase wages. So our employees receive very good wages. They make really good money there, and we also really are focusing on making sustainable jobs. So these are jobs where these are people that are supporting their families. We made a point of hiring veterans and disabled veterans students, and even helping people that had been previously incarcerated get back into the workforce. Really a tremendous job by my wife Tamara and the managers at the pier to build a team and a family out there. And it really paid off. We were able to provide services. A lot of restaurants, a lot of businesses had to close, and we were able to keep that going thanks to that team effort that everyone put into it. You know, where would all this business come from? We had 253,358 pier visitors in that time period. This is some detailed data that's really interesting to look at. Most of the visitors were walkers. They were people just walking up and down the pier. Checking that out, we had 11.8% were adult fishing and 4% were youth fishing. And remaining were some other activities. But that's interesting. It tells you a lot about what an attraction that is, that people come to Santa Rosa County, they go to Navarre Beach, and they like to walk out on the longest pier in the Gulf. We also, we provide, part of our contracts, we provide maintenance and support and repairs for the facility, and we did have a lot of that this year. There was a lot of deterioration, a lot of traffic, obviously, so there was a lot of use. It's a tough environment out there with the salt air and the weather, but we do pay all the maintenance and repair bills. We spent over $60,771 was what we reported in 2021, and that's still counting, actually. We still have projects going on right now. We were really pleased to be able to, our focus, part of our mission was to make this really a total entertainment family destination for people. We were able to host volleyball tournaments. We had live music events. Toes in the Sand was our movies, free movies that we have, cornhole tournaments, big screen sporting events. We played football games out there. And also expanded food and beverage downstairs. So the downstairs area has an expanded playground. We replaced the playground actually we replaced this year. And so we have a newer playground with different material that's, I think, more resilient. It's actually easier for the kids as well. And expanded the picnic area. We were able to host more community functions this year. So we had a great tournament. The GOAT kayak fishing tournament brings people in from really all around the country and around the world, actually, to come down and do kayak fishing in the Gulf right off Navarre Beach. So that was a great tournament. We also support Run for the Reef, the annual Pirate Plunge, Take a Kid Fishing, and then, of course, everyone's really excited about the July 4th fireworks. That's great out there, and I think it's just such a great venue. Everybody comes to the beach and see the fireworks, get right up close to the fireworks. It's a great thing out there. The other thing, another part of our mission is to support the environmental efforts out there, and we do that through our turtle rescue. We are, once again, the top in the state pier for the Florida Responsible Pier Initiative, rescuing turtles. And, we do that with our staff. We pay for the staff that does that and goes out and helps fishermen to rescue these turtles, coordinate that with the Gulfarium and with everyone out there. We're also home to the True Blue Shark Fishing Team, which is a great group of guys that get out there and they do fishing late at night, and they collect data for sharks, they tag it, they transmit it, and they report that data to NOAA. And so they're actually a really, a lot of people don't know that's really an exciting thing that they're doing out there, and we helped them maintain that operation. And also we've put together a group of volunteer divers that went out there this year, and we did some cleanup under the pier. So we removed a lot of filament and different things that had collected out there under the pier from the different storms. I wanted to point out also that we, as a business, we support local business. So we work with local contractors, local musicians and talent, other local businesses that have an economic impact in Santa Rosa County. So we do employ and work with a lot of different companies that are based right here in Santa Rosa County. A good example of that is that we have a real close relationship with Gold Ring Gulf Distributing, and I think we're one of the top 10 for that. They're based right here in Santa Rosa County, so we're excited about that. And we also work closely with UWF's Small Business Development Center. They helped us with a lot of different projects and help us focus on our growth and our operations and management. We also, as part of our operations, we do have an annual audit. Our accounting is audited by Carr, Riggs & Ingram, and that's a continual. We do that every year for the county, and as part of that, we also provide complete transparency to the county. All of the sales out at the pier run through a system called Revel, which is a computerized system. That system is really neat, has a lot of good data, real-time data, and it's directly accessible to the county employees and the county staff at the finance department. They can pull reports, archive, look at any of the data that we report here today, and they can see what's happening during the summer, during the peak months, and different types of events. And this is me, of course, but you know, it really is a team effort with everyone out there, and I can't say enough about the efforts of my wife. She's Tamara Fountain. She's acted as our operations manager out there and really helped spearhead bringing the team together. And we have a great group of people, a great group of managers. This has been just a real family effort. We have literally mothers and daughters working out there. We have brothers, sisters, siblings. And it really is a family of people in the Navarre community that work to make this place operate and make it special for everyone in Santa Rosa County. So we appreciate the opportunity. We really, it's a privilege, and we know it, and we try to be the best stewards that we can. And I've said this before, I promise the county will do our very best to deliver on all of our promises and to exceed your expectations. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Any questions, comments for Ken? Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say that I go down there quite a bit, and and I've seen that place change over the years, back from when I used to live down there. And right now, it is the best run that I've ever seen. I mean, it's upscale now. And another question, one of the questions I have is I see that it needs some repairs. Nothing to do with, you know, what you all do, but like the sidewalk down there, like I was walking down there barefoot, and I was thinking about the kids down there that, you know, maybe, you know, we as the board can help y'all out in the sense of, you know, I know that we've given other county-owned, you know, properties finances to help improve the area. So what I'd like to ask you and your group is if y'all can come up with proposals for us to where we can make that place better, because that's a jewel in Navarre, but I fully believe that it's the best run right now that it's ever run, and y'all are doing a fantastic job, and we appreciate all y'all are doing for our community.
Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Peach?
Thank you. Ken, Tamara, great team, great partners. We've worked a lot, and as Commissioner Calkins, we've been talking with them, or I've been talking with them. They're working up a list. In fact, we came up with another one just before the meeting. So they do a great job of identifying the issues. And as I told them, they're the tenant, we're the landlord. We own the building. So we're going to do our right part to make sure that pier's safe. You know, we've redecked it. We've done some electrical work together. We need to do more electrical work out there because the capacity is an issue, and that's a safety issue to me. There's probably some structural issues we need to look at that we didn't look at when we pier decked it, but I'm working with Tamara and Ken on a list of proposals I'll be bringing back to this board for more improvements out there, because the improvements you've made have been phenomenal. You know, the restroom took a little while. That was on us. We were redecking it. We got you electrical. So you've been flexible, adjustable. You work with the fishermen, and that's a group unto itself. They go the extra mile on holidays to open up for the fishermen. On holidays, they get their staff to go out there to provide a few hours of entertainment. So I appreciate everything y'all do, and as I've told you numerous times, keep talking to me and bring me the list, because the proof's in the numbers. I think that's probably the most, in 3 years prior to you guys getting there, you brought in a year with that pier. And I hear nothing but great reviews, and the tourist center gets nothing but great reviews on that pier. So I just want to thank you as your commissioner. And again, promise in the microphone, like I'm doing on the phone to Tamara, I'm here for you, and you just let me know what we need to do as a team, and we'll get it done.
Thank you. It's a privilege, and there are definitely things we can improve. And so we always are open on our end, and we'll keep giving it 100% on our side, too.
Commissioner Parker?
Thank you. Ken, I noticed you look more tan today than that photo from the slideshow.
Might have.
Really, I echo what other board members have said. One of the notes I had here was, how can we help you continue to improve? I remember when we went through the selection process, and it seems like it's been a while, maybe about 3 years or so ago. One thing I would love to try to get proactive on, rather than waiting until we start bumping up against time constraints, would be as we see the growth out there, and obviously the revenue that is so good for, in a way, I don't look at it so much for the county as a whole. I look at that as so that we can offset costs when we have to redeck the pier or other things. I would love if ahead of time y'all come to us not only with, as has been suggested today, improvements or things we could partner with, or other things that maybe we do through Julie's office and TDC funding, but also we start looking at, I don't want to forget that when this board, and I know me and Commissioner Cole got to hear the vision, and quite frankly, I just remember one of our former commissioners that was here had made a comment of, he would love to see a lot more investment and a lot more to the facility. And obviously, no one could expect you to do beyond a lot of the things you've done with the current lease agreements. So I would love if y'all could work on some proactive proposals that said, here's some investments we could make if we had X amount of years extended contract. Maybe we could pay the county instead of the 5% revenue. Maybe we look at a 7 or 8% revenue stream or something if we had X number of years guaranteed. When we went in the contract with y'all, quite frankly, it's a huge risk to y'all. And I remember the rocky road that you went through with taking it over, but I would love if y'all could proactively look at that and come back to us with some proposals to kick around before we come up to hey, the contract's about to end and we've got to go out for it. And I would 100% be open to that, and I think that y'all have started to really establish that formidable track record that this board would probably support some considerable extensions, which is what we put out initially was, hey, if we can get somebody to put those big investments in or other programs, which y'all have done, that we're definitely willing to do those longer leases. And I think that way we could possibly see even more amenities happen. So just wanted to extend that invitation, and I know that I would be supportive of considering that, and appreciate all y'all do. And we know who the real boss is, and we appreciate her too.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Wright?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ken, Tamara, as a fellow business owner in Santa Rosa County, I know how hard it is to really deal with that rocky road, that transition period, and then the staffing issues and how difficult that is to keep pay competitive and deal with consistent staffing. So my hat's off to you on that. As a citizen, a taxpayer, and a customer, I will tell you, a customer who's taken his children out there many, many times, I want to thank you for the environment you've created. You guys have created an environment that on that pier and at the restaurant there that is fun for everybody. Adults can go out and have a good time, have a couple adult beverages, but you guys have also made it very family friendly, where the kids can have a good time and it's a safe environment for them. And I just want to tell you thank you for that. I appreciate what you guys do, looking out for the kids and trying to make sure that the environment's family friendly for overall. And I think that's one of the reasons why you've seen not just the pent-up demand, but why you've seen such a success out there is the way you've run it.
Thank
So
you.
I just want to say thank you.
Ken, I can't reiterate what everybody else has said. You guys have done a great job. Enjoyed working with you on the restroom. Ben Franklin would have been proud of all the rigging you did to try to make that thing fired up. He had solar panel here and batteries there, and he'd stand on one foot with his finger in the air to see which way the wind was blowing and everything else. But I said then, the island facility out there under Julie has equipment ordered. It's now in. And the Toro Dingo is there, and I'd asked her if we could get with the manager out there and take the Dingo out and see how the Dingo would work to move the restroom in for cleaning and back and forth. And the commitment we made then is if that Dingo works, that the county would purchase the Dingo. You purchased the restroom, which I think was over and above in that initial investment. So I'm still willing to do that as long as I have board support. Let's give it a try, see how it works. For no other reason than I don't want to see Ken out there driving his Rover out onto the pier and back, because we're liable to have to get them out of the Gulf someday.
All right.
It'd just make it much safer to have a piece of equipment like that, to turn that around and move it. And appreciate what you're doing now to do it, but if we can make that safer and more convenient, I think it's up to this board to do so.
Well, thank you. That's great. And it is a family effort out there. So I took Dad's old Land Rover over, and we use it to move the restroom trailer on and off the pier. So if you ever see an old Land Rover going back and forth out there on the pier. But there are definitely some challenges, the parking lot, the electrical, the bathroom. There's things that we definitely could improve that would enhance the operations and the experience for everyone. And we definitely will come back with some good ideas for everyone
Okay.
to look at.
Well, thanks for the presentation. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Keep up the good work. All right, this time we'll move on to the commissioner items and the board appointments that I have for you guys. And you should have that in your backup, and I've got one here somewhere. Okay. We'll go down through them. I'll, of course, be Administrative Committee Chairman with Commissioner Calkins as my Vice Chair. Colton, I want to keep you on Budget and Financial for your business experience. I think you do a great job there. Dave, this is kind of, we'll have to explain this here. I was going to keep Economic and Tourist Development Committee, and that would have put Commissioner Peach without a committee. And Brad told me that he got all teary-eyed and puffy because I didn't put him on a committee. So I didn't want this Air Force guy up here crying on my shoulder. So what we're going to do is through mutual agreement, Commissioner Peach will be named as chair of Economic and Tourist Development Committee. I'll be vice chair. Our mutual agreement is he's going to take care of the tourism end of it, and I'll take care of the economic development end of it. Mainly because he's down there on the tourist end, and I got the rash of industrial parks in my area, so we'll work it out like that. And I don't have to bring napkins to the meetings. Service and Development Committee, Commissioner Calkins, with Sam as his vice, and then Operations and Safety, Sam and Colt. Then on affordable housing, you see I get asked Commissioner Calkins. Blackwater State Forest, Commissioner Calkins. Very important committees, Commissioner Calkins. The cost keeps rising on our affordable housing, so I expect you to keep a close eye on that. I think you, knowing your business in buying up apartments, renovating them and putting them up for rent, I think that gives you some ability to really watch that for the board. And I'd like for you to ask on Blackwater State Forest, there's been some concern that they don't take bears into the forest. When bears are relocated, they don't go to the forest, they go to other places, which we know we got a problem on the south end. And I heard this from somebody that jogs up there and was told that by somebody that works there. I asked over a year ago for a count from them through public records, how many bears they've taken in, how they account for the bears that they take in, and never got a reply. And I think we're going to see a growing concern again on the south end with bears and all through our county with bears. So if they don't take them into the forest, where else would they go? So I'd like to clarify that and make sure it's not a rumor mill out there, and get that information and bring it back to the board, if you will, please, sir. Absolutely. The Florida-Alabama Strategic Fast, Commissioner Parker, have they been meeting? You were on that last year. Has the FAST group been meeting to get 87 North continued growing and looking at that?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman, that's not a regular meeting, a committee there.
All right. I started to put myself in there, but I think time constraints is going to keep me from that. So if you'll take that, but if you'll follow up on that, because there's, with all the money flowing out of Washington and stuff, if we can lean on Chipley to get that 87 North 4-laned and help our citizens get, get out of the county if they need to get up to I-65. That's,
I will tell you, just since you asked, I talked with a representative of Mont McDonald last week, and actually had an inquiry for a property owner up there around Munson Highway area, and he said that they had just got a contract from DOT to do some of the design plans, but it wasn't to 100%. I think he said it was like 30% for phases of it. So DOT hadn't forgot about it, but I still tell people it looks like it's going to be a long way off
Light a
from
fire under it.
current standpoint.
all right. Well, anything we can do to help you keep that moving forward, let us know. Juvenile Justice Circuit, I'm going to ask Commissioner Wright to stay on there for me. And we recently had a request for some additional funding for team court. And Devan will get with you on that and look at that request. So bring it back to us. LMS Strategy Task Force, Commissioner Calkins will keep you there. I'm not going to go through them all. TDC, of course, Commissioner Peach. Canvassing Board, I'd like Commissioner Parker to be the Canvass Board member with Commissioner Wright to be the alternate on that. Value Adjustment Board, I'm going to take my name off of there and ask Commissioner Calkins to serve with Commissioner Peach and the citizens on that Citizen Advisory or Value Adjustment Board. I've been doing it, I think, ever since I've been on the board, and somebody else is going to have to get a little bit of experience on that. It's a very short meeting. Usually doesn't take more than 15, 20 minutes to knock that one out. Small County Coalition, Commissioner Parker, since you're with FAC, I kind of think those two go hand in hand. So if you're good with that, I'd like to keep you there. And the Transportation Disadvantage Coordinating Board, I've floated an idea a couple times. Commissioner Calkins, I'd like to keep you there. And then also on the West Florida Regional Planning Council, put you there in my place. But I've floated a new plan to maybe use Uber or Z-Ride or any of these other companies in place of these, short buses we see running all over the county. And I'd be willing to bet any one of you've probably seen less than 2 people in any of those buses at any given time. I think it's a big waste of taxpayers' money. It's a need that's out there. These citizens need to get to the doctor. They need to get wherever they have to go if they qualify for this. But we're spending money on vehicles. We're spending money on drivers, insurance, upkeep. Somebody that runs that program's making money. I mean, that's why they're running a program. And to me, there's already a dispatching system in place. And I've told this to Jared, I've told it to Senator Broxson, but I've recently got a real good feel from Representative Salzman about it. Why don't we use these Ubers and Z-Rides and other rides, use the dispatching system that's in place now, and just send one of these out there and how many more people could we move if we didn't have all that overhead? And suggested that maybe Santa Rosa County could be a trial basis for this type of thing. And, she seemed real interested in it. It would have to come from the state because they're who regulates that program, and of course some money from the feds, but I just can't see. I go by there pretty regularly. They sit over on the other side of the Ford Basin Road. I'll go by there and there's 7 or 8 of them sitting there. And those things cost us the tune of probably $125,000, $150,000 a piece when they're equipped for handicapped and everything, and then your driver and everything else I went through. So I'd really like for you to take charge of that and kind of push that agenda forward. And if you can't get anywhere with Representative Williamson or Senator Broxson, approach Representative Salzman about it, because she's I kind of laid that out for her, and she was real interested in it. So.
Fantastic, I appreciate it.
All right, anybody got any bellyaches about the assignments?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner.
Definitely not a bellyache, but I don't want to take the opportunity to not afford experience to new commissioners on something. I know earlier in this year, Tappy had reached out to me and asked me if I was willing to serve as an alternate so that she'd have a senior commissioner as an alternate to a newer commissioner. But I've been very blessed to get to serve on the canvassing board during the general cycle for 2016, and then the primary and the general in 2018, and even went through the statewide recount for Governor DeSantis's race. And being with Tappy and Phyllis and Michelle was an amazing experience. And I know we've got 2 new guys on the board now, and I definitely don't mind doing an alternate or doing the primary as you suggested. I just wanted to point that out in case it was an accidental oversight that having 2 new guys on the board, it's one of those things where I don't know that a whole bunch of people jump up and down and say, hey, look, I want the opportunity. But
Well,
it is truly, if you ever have any question about election fraud or how our elections run or the back end, and you really want to stand on your own 2 feet from experience and say, you know what, there is integrity in the election cycle, I think having the opportunity to serve on the canvassing board allows folks to do that. So willing to serve in that capacity. I just wanted to point out with 2 fellas that may want an opportunity, it only comes around once every 2 years, that I'd be willing to act as an alternate if you'd like me to, or step all the way aside, either way.
okay. I'd like for you to stay on as the main guy, and Colton as the alternate. And here's the reason why. I nominated Colton for honorary commander. Of course, you got your name into it. But if he gets that position as honorary commander, I don't want conflict in time and him not be able to serve as an honorary commander because he's got canvassing board duties. Now, if you get that and Colton doesn't, then we'll reverse it at that time, because we got time for that. That work for both y'all? But I know how much time it takes for our honorary commander and how much time it takes for canvassing board, and there certainly would be some conflict there, so. And that work?
Listen, I love the opportunity. They feed me really good down there. I just, like I said, all jokes aside, it was an amazing experience, and I can look at anybody and say, I'm not worried about election fraud in Santa Rosa County. And until you serve on the canvassing board, there's really no way as a commissioner you can look somebody in the eye and say, yeah, I'm 100% sure of it, because you haven't went through it. And I just didn't want to rob Commissioner Calkins or Commissioner Wright of that opportunity, and that's the only reason I brought that up.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it at that, and let's see how it goes with the selection. So, all right? All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you serving in those capacities this year. And at this time, we got public forum. We've got Ryan, Anna, and Laura Fowler here. Are you folks here for anything that's not on tonight's agenda, or are you here? Okay. Is it an item on the agenda or something different? Okay, come on up. Glad you came out tonight.
Greetings, commissioners. Merry Christmas. I was here last month, similar topic, but it's about the land development code, specifically the alternative subdivision. I'm just going to keep harping on it. I'm a realtor. I have a safety construction background, started engineering, and I just been looking at it. The alternate subdivision provision, if you don't know about it, allows people to subdivide their parcel, but they could put like clusters of houses real close together, 0 lot lines potentially, because it doesn't spell out the setback at all. It says you could do whatever you want. You could make the parcel whatever size you want based on the alternative subdivision. And you may think that's the greatest thing, but it's not, because I can't come, if my neighbor wants to do that, all of a sudden, decides to subdivide. I can't even say, hey, I'm against that. I don't want 10 houses along my side. I like just having you there. And then you guys don't even get the vote on it, so we don't have any input to you. And then you don't get the vote on these subdivision changes. It's basically, it's changing the zoning another way and bypassing me as and other voters without having any say in the matter, and with, just goes through. No signs, no public input whatsoever. I lived in Gulf Breeze 6 years and then moved up to Pace. And it was like a side job trying to find an ag RR, but we did. And for miles around, it's all ag RR. So we picked that specifically, and there's undeveloped areas, so we realized that they could put 1 acre lots, but this provision is changing it. It could be like 0.1 smaller lots, and it's just not going to fit the surrounding area, the type of people that want to farm and live there. So it's incompatible. It's going to lead to complete disorder. Like, I'll have the same zoning, ag RR, so will they, but how come theirs is like a small lot and 0 setbacks?
If you'd like,
It doesn't make any sense.
Sean? He was keeping his head down, hoping I wouldn't see him back here. I'm gonna let our official speak on that and answer some of your questions for you. If you'll step back from the mic just a moment. Kind of heard what some of his comments were. Could you kind of maybe clarify some of those for him?
Yes, sir. So Mr. Fowler and his family, they live adjacent to the proposed Jubilee project that's forthcoming. I also want to take the opportunity to say thank you for having your kids send me letters and pictures of drawings. That's the first time in my planning career that I've had children send me drawings and pictures talking about a development coming in next to their property. Certainly you're zoned ag, and you'll be able to continue to have your agriculturally zoned property. We're not changing that. So the alternative subdivision as proposed, as of right now, I don't believe we have a subdivision that's been submitted by Jubilee. So we know that some of those phases may come out as a PUD, some of it may be alternative, some of it may follow the standard subdivision review process. The way the board has written it is basically as an alternative subdivision. If they choose to go that route, it will stay private, so the Board of County Commissioners won't take over the roads or the stormwater ponds or anything of that nature. But it does allow the developer to cluster density to certain areas to save other areas as open space and amenities. So that is something that certainly occurs. It is similar to a PUD, but it does not go through the public hearing process as demonstrated. That was something we worked with the Chamber Coalition closely with, and this board, and you asked us to do. So the county engineer sitting over here on the dais, I don't know if she has any information, but I'm not aware. I know they've just started, foresting some of the trees as such. They're certainly looking at their proposed subdivisions and kind of how they're going to design it and lay out. But as of current, we don't have any type of official plans or anything submitted.
Okay. And Sean, they cannot increase the density.
That is correct, sir. So if they come in with 20 acres of ag, they can have 20 houses. Now, whether or not that's a quarter acre lot, a half acre lot, or a 1 acre lot, that's certainly up to them. There will be some perimeter, certainly for consistency. If they have a 1 acre lot adjacent to a 1 acre lot, we're going to try to make sure that they have 1 acre lots consistent with it. But on some of those interior lots, they could certainly go down to a quarter acre lot.
Sure. And say like they decide, they got 50 acres, they could build 50 houses. They decide to put all 50 of those houses on 25 acres. What locks them in to say 10 years from now, they don't come back and say, hey, we got 25 acres sitting here, let's put 25 more houses there or more?
Yes, sir. So right now, staff is working on like a master plan application that would be submitted to the department, similar to like what we do for a parent parcel, access management, and the list goes on. That way, it is clearly identified. The other thing, too, is because it is an alternative subdivision, it will have to go through the final plat process. So that final plat will come to this board. The board will adopt that final plat, and it will identify that area as a conservation, open space, amenities type area.
Okay. And that's what I was looking for.
Yes, sir.
How we lock that in so it stays that way.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Sean.
Just a few points. He pointed out that there's this green space that they use so they could cluster. part of that includes you could swamp. They're calling it green space, and that's to me unusable to be walking through there with all the moccasins and everything else, as well as a stormwater retention area. Typically, you're going to fence it so the kids don't drown in it. How is that green space? It just doesn't make sense, because they have to build that anyway, and they can't build on wetland anyway, and then they're calling that usable like leisure area, like it's going to be some kind of park. But there's all kinds of problems with that. It's going to lead to chaos, and like you said, another board comes next generation and it's all changed. They'll fill it up with houses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right,
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner.
I just like the opportunity to ask the county attorney something just for clarification if anybody's out there watching online that may be curious about one thing he just mentioned at the end when he stated, future boards could come along and change it. Once the board adopts a plat for whether it be an alternative or a regular subdivision, and that plat says, here's the lots, here's the identified conservation area, or however it's identified as recreation, can a future board amend that plat, or is that locked in, or what would that process be?
Their ability to amend in the future would be only consistent with the Land Development Code. And as it stands right now, it wouldn't be able to be changed. So once it's recorded, and obviously if the board took future action, it would have to be consistent with your LDC. So if they've used up all their density, you would not be able to amend it to add density.
I think that's really all I was looking for was
Right.
clarification, that pretty much once that plat is recorded on a final plat, there is no altering it.
No altering that would increase density, correct?
All right. Our next speaker this evening is, did any of the other filers speaking? Okay.
Good evening, gentlemen. We moved from the suburbs to the country so we could be able to have a farm and raise our animals. And then when you passed the alternate subdivision provision in the Land Development Code in August, it now allows the Jubilee to build a development right next to our farm, and they can cluster houses on a quarter-acre lots instead of putting them on an acre like the alternate subdivision, like the Land Development Code says they're supposed to. And then it says they can do that if they have green space, but the green space is actually, they put in wetlands, and which is actually on their Jubilee property. So they would be able to put quarter-acre lots on their Jubilee property and just have the wetlands that they wouldn't be able to build on anyway as their green space. So they'll still be getting their subdivision, but they'll be able to do more because they wouldn't be able to use it anyway. And then they also use their retention ponds also, and other things that they have to put in, they just count as green space. And we really enjoy our farm life, and we think that if the Jubilee is put in, then we will not be allowed to have our rights as much, because they will all come and protest, and there'll be only a few of us and a lot of them, and they'll say we don't enjoy them having their guns, we don't like them having their pigs, their cows, or their chickens, and so we would like their zoning changed so they can't do this.
Young lady, thank you. Sean, questions come up now a couple times about them being able to use basically unusable space to count towards usable space, or their holding ponds. You've heard the conversation. Can you clarify that?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. So basically, as far as open space goes, it certainly could be wetlands, it could be the ponds. Understand that in a private subdivision, the ponds are not required to be fenced in. So they could include something that's decorative in a sense and used for open space and amenities. But it would include all of that. We also need to consider the fact that the first couple of phases of Jubilee as proposed they're only doing, let's say, 150 acres or 200 acres or whatever at that point. So we will design, they will be required to meet the design standards for that subdivision at that time. It's not like we're looking at the entire 2,800 acres at one time.
Okay, and do you recall when Jubilee was originally processed and rezoned and stuff like that?
Yes, sir. So I was with the county when that started,
Yeah, so was I.
and the marketing plea or ply that went associated with that. But I can tell you at the time Jubilee was going through, the state of Florida had what we call the Development of Regional Impact, which basically required anything over 1,000 homes to go through that DRI process. The state of Florida has done away with the DRI process, so that's no longer there. As far as reaching out with the state agencies that would have been required through the DRI, that is not. So they had a PUD, it was done for the golf course, all of that has expired, it has certainly gone back to agricultural zoning. So as it is right now, we have about 2,800 acres of agriculturally zoned property, which they can do. Anything other than that, if they want to propose any type of multifamily, commercial, any type of development as such would require to come back to this board for a rezoning at that time, and we would go through the public hearing process.
But Mr. Chairman, to clarify, just because your parcel has wetlands, which is, quote, not usable, that standard's across the board. If you had a quarter-acre lot, and that's all you could build is one unit, if part of it was wetlands, that wouldn't detract from your quarter acre. You could still build your home. And there's many quarter-acre lots that have some wetlands on it. So whether it's a big development or small, it's still counted as, of course, your property and towards your density allocation.
Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate that. Thank you, Sean.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think the young lady still had 2 minutes left, and I just wanted to make sure, was she finished? So real quick, I didn't hear a name, if we get that for the record. Was it Ellen? Was that correct? Okay. Anna. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. You showed tremendous courage for getting up and speaking at that microphone. That's very impressive. And congratulations, parents, for raising a daughter to stand up and speak her mind.
And to put her at ease, I don't know anybody on this board, and I wouldn't think future boards in a county like Santa Rosa, that agriculture is one of the most beneficial parts of living here and economic driver for here. As long as I'm alive, I'd be at a board, if I'm not sitting up here, I'd be at a board meeting out there with you, tell them, it's ag, they want a cow, they want a pig, they want a horse, they were there first, go away. So, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just want to thank you that we get this opportunity to talk to you about our concerns. It's just so great to live in America. Anyway, I want to talk about something a little bit different, although similar. You granted an access to Jubilee on Mahogany Road, right? And I talked to you about it before. But I wanted to think of an analogy that would help you see how I'm coming from. And what better than God's word to go to his wisdom? So there's a story in the Bible that you probably heard before, but Nathan goes to David with the story, and he says there's a farmer who has a ton of sheep. He's really rich. And then there's a little poor man who has only one lamb, and he feeds it at his table, and he sits in his lap. Well, a neighbor comes to visit the farm, and the rich man, and the rich man takes the poor man's lamb and feeds it to his neighbor, right? And Nathan says, "You're the man." And David said, "Oh, that's terrible. He has to pay back 4 sheep for that one lamb." Okay, well, that's my analogy. You got Jubilee. They've got 1.5 miles of access on Willard North Road. They have access on Luther Feller Road. And you've taken Mahogany Road's peace and quiet and their rural lifestyle, taken it away from them. And then, Jubilee didn't need it. They had it already. And then when you tell me that you gave them no logging trucks, it's like saying, okay, well, don't worry. We're not going to take your donkey too. We're just going to take your lamb. That kind of it's just not thinking of their, their property value goes down, and that's just, and it affects the whole, not just, I don't live on Mahogany Road. It's a nice road. They've got cows, and, not cows, but horses, and then this alternative subdivision doesn't just affect us. We're bordering Jubilee, so it does affect us. But the whole county is affected. There are other ag RR lots that people don't want changed. They want their neighbors to stay ag RR lots. 1 acre lots are what ag RR requires, and 1 acre lots are valuable. We looked for a year and a half trying to find something. We didn't care how many acres as long as it was zoned something where we could do ag RR. It took us a year and a half to find something that we and our neighbors were all zoned ag RR so that we could do what we wanted to do. And I don't want to shoot guns when it bothers my neighbor, because I love my neighbor, and I don't want to have a smelly pig next to my neighbor because I love my neighbor, and I want to live far from my neighbors so that I can do these things without bothering them, and they might all build beside us, but I wouldn't want to bother them, and I would want it to be people that like me on 1 acre lots that are like me, that like pigs and shooting guns like me. If you have 1/4 acre lots next to me, they're most likely not going to be like that. They're most likely going to be different. That's.
I think the main portion of what I took from your question was the accessibility to Mahogany, and I'm going to ask the county attorney, if a person's property abuts a county road, my thoughts are the county has no ability to say, no, you can't connect to that road. And they were nice. I consider they agreed not to use that for, large trucks and semi-trucks and logging trucks, but just for pickup trucks and cars. Now, if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong, but I wouldn't think.
In general, yes, I'm not familiar with this particular right-of-way. But, subject to the land development code or their site plans, often controls the method of access, but.
But basically, if anyone owns a piece of property that abuts a county road, I would not think the county has the ability to say, no, you can't drive.
No, you can also, when there's a development plan, you can prescribe the method of access, where access will be located, turn lanes, things like that, to facilitate traffic flow. But if you're just talking about an incidental access before a development plan, no, someone has a right to go to their property, to travel to their property. Correct.
So that's kind of what we're up against right now. But I think our planning staff knows the feelings of the folks on Mahogany and in that area, and are going to work closely with that. So.
Well, I think that, I'm not an expert by any means, but I think that the parcel line was here and the road stopped here, on at least what I can see online. So that's why you had to come here and grant that easement to go from where the road ends to where the parcel started. So there was an easement granted for that access,
And the county owns so far off the edge of the pavement on just about all properties. We don't build the road out to right to the edge of the county easement. There's usually 4, 5, 6 feet from the pavement to the actual right-of-way. So Commissioner Dawkins, he had
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to let y'all know, appreciate y'all coming up here and speaking, and your daughter did a fantastic job. I was really impressed, and she's actually a better speaker than she's one of the top. So it was very impressive. And so also I want to say, right now with this current board, I would not worry about restrictions on agricultural land regarding what you do on your property. We have shown that we are pro-property rights, we are pro-gun, and we respect your property. And I believe this whole board has shown that. Also, animals, agriculture, we are the agricultural capital of the state. We're the second agricultural county. I just learned that after an event I just went to, that we're the second most agricultural area in the state, and this board supports property rights and our agriculture. And so I don't know what'll happen with that development. It's still in the process, and I've talked with them. I met with the folks at Mahogany Drive, and we were able to get the logging trucks not going through Mahogany Drive, which is great. Also, I wanted to have a town hall meeting, but we need to get more information from everybody so we can know what the development's going to be in that particular area. So far, it looks good, but we also need the people's input. We need y'all's input. So when I get all the information I can, and Sean is going to keep me up to date on that particular issue, and we will organize something to, get community involved as much as we can, and respect your property rights and those kind of things. But thank you for coming up and speaking, and anything you need, let me know. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I just want to say that I'm not just concerned about Jubilee. I'm concerned about the whole county, how it affects all developments, not just Jubilee, because people need to be able to say, I don't want, when you buy a property, I want to be able to know it's not going to change without a chance to protest. But anyway, sorry.
Well, thank you all three for coming this evening. Appreciate it. Right, we have Jonathan Jones. Mr. Jones? Ken, I seen your name here too, but I figured you're already done. Mr. Jones, is there a Jonathan Jones here this evening? He signed in, going once, going twice, okay. All right, I'm going to close public comment period, and we're going to move on with the agenda. All right. Brad, there was a couple things on the online forum. Do we read them now, or do we just make it known that they're available on? I think there was 2 online, so I didn't print them out. But
I think those are just submitted for your information.
all right, okay, thank you. Okay, and I guess they came to all the board members, so if you have any comments about those, if they're in your district, we'll be glad to entertain those. The consent agenda is kind of lengthy, but I'd like to run down through it instead of just moving it. This being the last, almost next to the last meeting of the year, just for explanation purposes. The first one's the EDO grant award for $1 million for purchase of equipment for the A&P Mechanics School. And any questions on that? We've got Erica and Shannon here if you got any questions. Seeing none.
Just one real quick,
Okay.
just real
Commissioner.
quick. The grant says it's got to be spent by June of next year, right, Erica?
Yes, sir.
So is there a plan, because I've ran into this before, and I'm sure you've thought of it, but I just want to get it out there. If we get the equipment, we're not ready to put it in the school yet because it's not built. Do we have a plan for
Yes, sir.
storage? and
Yes, sir.
everything? All
We
right.
absolutely do. PSC is being very flexible with us on that.
Awesome. Just want to make sure, because I've had warehouses full of stuff before in a previous life, and it's not
Yes.
pretty. Thank you,
Yes.
Erica. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
And then the second item is an amendment to the EDO contract. If you looked at that, does the board have any questions on that? Seeing none, we'll move on to that. The event request, the only one was number 6. I wanted to make sure that the county would be reimbursed in some sort of manner for the cost of that. The other items pretty much are for public purpose. That one, the Elite Championship Wrestling, I think is a for-profit. So we'll make sure staff's nodding its head, yeah, we're going to,
They will be paying for
Paying
use of our
rent.
facility.
okay, and make sure they clean it up good and all that stuff, so we'll move on to that. Noise variance, I did have a question on that, because normally the noise variance for concrete pouring is during the summer when it's so hot out. But I guess with the variation in temperature we're seeing right now, they're doing this for safety's sake. So if it's in your district and you get a phone call, that's what that is. That's Summit Contracting Group. You're good on that? Okay, all right. Next one, surplus and damaged property, and Donnie's office handles that. Does a good job bidding it out, so we make a little more off that. Number 6 is law enforcement trust fund, and that's pretty much sheriff's bellywick, and it always goes for a good purpose, as you see there, big brothers and big sisters of Northwest Florida. Restore application for the North Santa Rosa wastewater treatment facility. I'm very glad Brad's taking a hold of that thing and moving it forward, and appreciate the help that Tom's been on that already. We drastically need to get that plant coming out of the ground, and so we can keep more septic tanks out of that, all the East Milton area over there. So good on you guys for getting that going again and trying to get more funding for them. Career Source Escarosa, we all know Steve Rhodes. He's a great, we're looking to reappoint Steve, so on that board of directors. Metron Estates, put a lot of money in the hole in the ground, but we got to fix those people's property. So if there's, I think, Sam, that's your district, right? Okay, Sam's on top of that, and I appreciate you doing that. Candace, here's two that really, though, I want to discuss with the board. Candace Place final plat, and also then Forest Bay Estates Phase 4 final plat. I'm okay with accepting the final plats, but the engineering on Forest Bay and Candace plats, well, let me get it straight here. The plats are done, the infrastructure's in place, and I'm okay with going ahead and moving forward with the okaying the final plats. But to accept the roads and all the drainage and stuff when the homes aren't built yet, to me is a problem area. And Rebecca, can you help me out here? I'm getting a little tongue-tied on how I'm explaining this, but Rebecca and I and staff talked about this earlier, and on all these subdivisions, it could be 2, 3, 4 years before they're built out. And we're accepting them before the first house is getting stood up just because the roads and the drainage and the infrastructure's in place, but yet we all know when they're constructing, there's going to be a lot of dirt and stuff go down these drains. And I want to throw it out there to the board so we can be thinking about this, that we no longer accept the roads and the drainage until the last house is built, and then that starts the clock on the warranty on that particular item. And Rebecca, anything else you could add to that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we can talk about that, but that could theoretically be 10 years or never for some subdivisions, but to require 100% build out. But we can certainly look into that.
Well, and I'm just putting it out there because we can't talk amongst each other, but it's a way that I'd like to start approaching the county not taking drainage or roads at some time. We got to start someplace.
And the problem you may have, I mean, obviously this is maybe even a workshop issue.
Sure.
With people buying homes, it's going to complicate their decision to buy if they aren't accepted for maintenance, and that's an open-ended question, and there's not a separate mechanism set up like a private homeowner association to build it. So it's probably going to take a lot of staff work and getting with the board to get you some background on that.
Okay. And it's nothing I can see us curing tonight, but I wanted to get it out there because of our fine sunshine law. We can't sit and have a huddle about this stuff. So get it out there to the public, get it out there to the home builders, get it out there to the rest of the board where we'd like to go with this stuff. So, and just put it out there. So, I'll leave them on the agenda for tonight. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
No, sir, I'm good. I was ready to respond
if
if you
I messed
needed
it
to.
up too bad, help me out. But,
No, sir, I would say the only caveat, kind of as Mr. Danhauser said, was we probably can't go to the last house is built, but we could do a percentage of completion or a time limit, maybe something that we can look at. But I could definitely work with Mr. Danhauser and get the details worked out.
And Rebecca, I know you've been working hard on some ideas like this, and I didn't want to let the cat out of the bag too soon. But so I appreciate your work on that. But I think, I'd like for all the board to be on the kind of same page and as we move forward with that. So, All right. And I talked about the P Ridge connector and some things we have to do on there. And the rest of them, if there's any questions from the rest of the board members, I've reviewed them and I'm good with them. So any comments or questions about the consent agenda? Okay, if not, then I'll move that to Thursday's agenda without objection. Hearing none, we'll move it. All right, we'll move on to the regular agenda. Economic and Tourist Development Committee. Dave, you'll take this because it looks like it's all tourists.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First item is appointment of Judy Windorfer to fill the TDC Board of Directors vacancy. This is to fill the position until October 31st, 25. We did the advertisements. The Tourist Development Council reviewed the submissions and unanimously recommends approval of Judy Windorfer for that position. Are we moving these to a consent agenda for Thursday? So I would recommend we move that to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it moves.
My lingo back changed down from the way it changed in business. Item number 2 is the appointment of Nick Phoenix to fill the TDC Board North End. Bed tax collector. Nick's been on the board for several years. He's a great asset to the TDC. He has graciously volunteered to keep serving if we so choose, and the TDC recommends approval without objection. If there's any questions, none, I would recommend moving this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So move.
Item number 3 is a letter of support for Northwest Florida Tourism Council's Adventure Within Reach. Discussion of issuing a letter of support for Northwest Florida Tourism Council's Adventure Within Reach application under the EDA 2021 ARPA Tourism Grant application. If there's any, I've talked with Julie at length about this. This does not come out of the ARPA funds we received. This is a separate ARPA funded thing that all of Northwest Florida is putting in for as a group as a grant. Did I do it justice, Julie? Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, I'd recommend moving it to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it passes to Thursday.
That concludes that committee.
Thank you, Mr. Peach. Now we'll go into the Development Services Fee Resolution. Who's taking this? Sean, you taking this, or Mr. Phillips, you handle it? Okay. It comes equipped with a magnifying
And Commissioner Cole, this was as directed by the Board of County Commissioners. We brought the staff proposal forward to cover basically the employees' cost of those added employees that the board approved for the budget, and we do have each of those departments available to answer questions tonight.
As Mr. Baker said, back in June when we had our budget workshop and we received an additional 11 slots for personnel, we were tasked with coming back with some fee resolutions to try to offset some of those costs. And since that time, we've also bought electronic permitting software to help speed up our processes. And so after many months, we have nailed down what we feel like our fees could be in order to help offset some of the costs to speed up that permitting process. In the resolution, you see basically one giant fee schedule for all of the fees that would be paid by the users of the Building Inspections Department, the users of the Planning Department, engineering, and even Public Works. It's really about all I have. If you all have any questions, we will definitely take a shot at them.
Mr. Calkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, this is really in small print, but I kind of had a little bit of an idea from last time. So if can you explain like the increase, like if I wanted to build a house, just one house, for instance, and want to get a permit and all that, how much would it increase?
So we did do some fee analysis, and let's see. We have a, let's see. This is the portion that I did not put together, so you'll have to bear with me. But we have a alteration cost of construction. That's for residential. Well, I'm sorry, that is not the item I am looking for. I don't have that figure in my backup. Hopefully Tambry does.
A rough average for an average, I believe we calculated it, a comparison on a 2,000 square foot home, including your building, electrical, plumbing, and mechanical fees, the total would generate about $137 difference per single family. There's a few variables in there, but that'll give you an idea of comparison.
So $125 total.
Yes, sir, that would be your building, plumbing, electrical, mechanical.
125 more than it currently is.
Correct.
That's what I meant. Yeah, that's what I meant.
So you'd be looking about 30, 33, and some change per. It's broke down in the package.
So if you were building 10 houses, it would be $1,000, correct?
Depends, you'd go into a different category if you were doing subdivisions, correct? I mean,
Sir?
if you were doing a subdivision, it'd be a different category than a
This
single
is,
person resident.
that would just be your building permit fees
Yeah.
for construction of the home.
It's about 62.9%.
Okay, one more question. Didn't we have this already budgeted? Like when we passed not the fees, but we added the 11 employees. Didn't we already have that budgeted through the general fund? Is that? I thought that was already.
Yes. So at the end of that budget workshop, you all added the funds to be able to take care of those departmental additions. However, we were tasked with bringing fees to try to help offset some of that. And that's what this is.
Okay.
Commissioner Parker.
I'm going to,
It's also important to remember that the Building Inspections Department is enterprise. So the users of that department pay into it, and that money stays in that department to keep it going.
yeah, somebody can correct me, but I'm pretty sure we didn't take, and I may be wrong, because I definitely voted to support the positions, but I don't think we were paying for it from general fund. Now, maybe we up front of that, but that's the whole reason for the enterprise fund. But let me say this. I said it before, and then I'll speak. The biggest thing I can do is lean on Tambry and Chris, and really ultimately Devan and Brad, and then it falls on us. But this is their task to come back to us and show quantifiably that by doing this, the end user is getting a better quality. I have heard all along from the building community folks that I know that says, hey, look, we're willing to pay more, but if we get better service. We don't want to get consummate service. We don't want to get worse service. And that's why I supported this. But I'll say this. I had a fella submit 2 permits on my behalf last month. And I talked with him he talked about, hey, of course, you're always going to hear, well, Escambia may do this and Okaloosa may do this. We do some things better than some of our neighboring counties, and we do some things not as good. That's life and with any business. But the particular permits that I submitted, and I'll be submitting one either this week or next week for an additional one on an electrical. The 2 permits I submitted, I'll say this, and this is why I will, unless something definitely goes awry, vote to support this tonight, is for the particular permits I submitted, the fee proposal increases them by about 11%, if my math is right. I've been waiting since the middle of November for mine to get approved. I'm not complaining. I'm saying if I could have paid an 11% more, and in this case we're talking about $7, to get my permits back more expedited from a business side, and I'm not doing these from a business side, I'm doing this from a personal. So I don't know if you want to say from a business side or from the citizen, like we talk about, we always wonder about how does this affect our citizen that does one project or two projects in their lifetime. I would gladly have paid the $7 to have, if it means having adequate, like Chris said, software and adequate staff to process it, to get it back. Because to me, ultimately, and I can tell you, I just thought of another fellow. His kid plays baseball on my kid's team, and he was calling me, Sam, we submitted our plans, you know, what's taking so long? Now, granted, not everybody has the opportunity. To some folks, $7, it could break their monthly budget. And that's a reality, and I know that's what we're dealing with. But honestly, most of the folks in my social circle, they would gladly pay an extra, whether it be $10 or $100 on a $200,000 project, if it meant that they could start working on it a couple weeks quicker. And so that's the way I'm looking at this. That's why I supported your request for the 11 positions. And just as a citizen, when I'm putting in applications, that is what the standard I'm going to hold this to, especially when it comes into, as we plan for the future year, is if I can see that, yes, things are getting quicker or inspections are getting done. That's the one other thing I want to say, because I've beat this drum and I thank God that we're actually here. Some of this will hopefully go to plan review, and permit process time is huge. And that's what we always hear about. And I honestly have never heard someone come to that podium that I can remember and complain about inspection time or inspection quality. But you've heard me talk about my own story with Sonny Northrop, who found a piece of decking board that wasn't even nailed down. Remember, he was out there with his PVC pipe. True story, my house. And so I also hope that part of this is, it's going to be hard. Tambry, with how she put the sheet, can probably come back and show us a quantitative way, but it may be something that you never hear a citizen or a businessman mention, but it's something that could genuinely affect people's lives tremendously. What if during Hurricane Sally, Sonny wouldn't have had the time that day to come out and because we're giving him 40 inspections, and now my roof comes apart or whatever. So I just want to say that's why I'm going to support this today. And I please hope that you'll take that back to your folks, that obviously we want process times quicker, but especially on the inspection side, we just want to really ensure quality, because I do think this is part of public safety. People's homes, whether it be from flooding or from storm or preventing an electrical fire that could, kill somebody that doesn't have time to get out in the middle of the night, is absolutely just as important as what we're going to vote on tonight, whether it be fire apparatuses or funding to go for, we've got a sheriff's request on here about the jail. So just please take that back to your folks, and that's why I will support this.
Okay, any other comments? Hawkins?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate Commissioner Parker's comments, and I respect the will of this board. My thoughts are, we passed the LDC, we work real hard on it. There's a lot of extra costs based on, the technology, the environmental stuff that our business community has to endure, that has an effect on building a house based on the LDC. There's always costs. Things are going up. Lumber's going up. Food is going up. It's just, so it may look little. $125 sounds little, but it's if there's one contractor building the house, that $125 is the difference between a nice light fixture over your kitchen or not a nice light fixture. And what happens is the quality of the building goes down when we keep hitting one after another after another. We already had it in the budget for the 11 employees. This to me looks like it's extra. I can't support this, but I respect the will of the board on what y'all want to do. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
I might, Sam. What I've heard is what I've heard from what Sam said. And when you look at that cost compared to what the monthly cost is on the interest on a construction loan, that's a fraction of what that, just the interest, not the payback on the construction loan. Then you go to commercial or something larger than, to get that permit in hand. I've heard that time and time again from developers, whether it be commercial or residential. It's costing, thousands of dollars in interest. So That's why I'm going to support it, to get that process moving faster is the ultimate goal here, so.
Mr. Chair.
Sam has light on now. I'll
Okay.
come back to you.
And again, as the chairman said earlier, my comments are only going to be because we don't have the opportunity to speak offline, and so as a respectful conversation, I just want to share my viewpoint is respectfully disagree. I don't think that the cost of that extra $125 means that, I believe to quote you, was an inferior project or however you said it, a lesser of a project. I think with my example, and it's crazy, I didn't know Sonny Northrop was back there, that inspector caught something that improved the quality of my building. If we have a plan reviewer that's able to look at something, and because quite frankly, humans can only handle so much workload, and Tambry proved those numbers overwhelmingly. And so if we have folks that have a reasonable workload so that they can see it, my argument is that I think we can actually come up with a better product. Yes, they may have to sacrifice, in your case, a light fixture, but if that cost meant that we have an inspector that now may have 25 inspections to do that day instead of 40, and they could take a few minutes and possibly catch something, as we mentioned, whether it be an electrical fire. We're buying fire trucks today for over $500,000 each because it's life safety. And nobody bats an eye at that. They're fire trucks, right? Everybody loves firemen, even more than cops. But the thing is, if that inspector could catch something that the guy that's making $15 or $18 an hour, and he's working hard, but he makes mistakes when he wires an outlet or whatever. And the general contractor, he's busy because he's got a subdivision, and he doesn't have time to go back and check. And if that inspector has a few more minutes in his day because he has less of a workload, and it is, I mean, when I was standing there and I watched that roofing panel come up, it's one of those things kind of like when you come to say, I know that I know that I know that I know that Jesus Christ is real. Like, nobody's ever going to convince me that Sonny and the building department didn't help me get a better quality house. And it could be something, even as I mentioned electrical, that they could actually go back then, they fail that, and they give the comment, it goes to the general contractor, and they say, okay, and that general contractor calls his electrician, and they go back out and they fix it. Well, that's not a glorious or, exciting thing, but you could argue that maybe cosmetically, or maybe instead of spray foam, they did, fiberglass insulation, and you could say, well, that's less of a product, but I think you could argue that in a lot of ways, we're providing an opportunity for them to get a better product, to get a better quality control and a better inspection. And I just want to say that respectfully, that's my viewpoint on it, and I think we should afford the citizens the opportunity to at least hear the varying viewpoints on why we do this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Respectfully, those arguments that were used, we added 11 new employees. And those exact arguments were used to add the 11 employee that this board voted to add, and so our permits will be shorter period of time. And as far as I knew, that was already budgeted within the budget. As far as I knew, it was budgeted last year. And so my question is, why are we this just looks to me like an extra. All those points you made about us needing to shorten permit times, I agree with all those comments. The comment I have is, why extra? Like, if it's not already budgeted, what's the...
Jane, can you help us? Because if it's extra money just for extra money, I'll vote against it as well. So maybe I misunderstand it.
Do you want to speak to did you want to say something, Jane?
I can. I think I can clarify some of the confusion. When we come for the 11 positions back in the summer, 8 of the positions I requested from my staff, which is part of the enterprise account. And when I did my presentation, we estimated to put on those additional 8 was going to cost roughly $770,000, about $750,000. And that was going to raise our fees about 20%, and we knew that was way too much. So we went back, and that's when we went back, started calculating to see how we could fund those positions. And that's what part of this fee proposal is we're roughly proposing to generate about another $500,000 to help support those additional positions. We're not totally funding the whole 770-something thousand. So it was kind of that meet in the middle. And I've already hired 3 of those positions that were proposed. This is just to help balance that so we can pay for those folks.
So this is extra because we,
No, it's to continue. The money's there for this
But
year,
it's split
but
in half, okay.
to have the money for the next years to come, you got to have it come from somewhere.
I understand.
I mean, legally, whatever permit you charge, it can't be basically a revenue-raising thing. So your permits will never meaningfully exceed the cost of the department. Otherwise, it's considered a tax. So,
Good. I think we had a couple speakers out here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Alton Lister, Lister Builders, also over the governmental affairs for the local Home Builders Association. David Peden couldn't be here tonight, so stuck with me. First of all, let me say that we immediately get a bunch of phone calls being over the governmental affairs. Anytime things happen, my phone, David's phone starts ringing from builders who has concerns, and we've had a number of concerns about this. Probably the biggest thing that we're hearing from the guys, the builders on the ground, is not so much against the fee per se, kind of like what Mr. Sam mentioned a while ago, as much as builders who's been here for a while. I've been building 37 years in this county, and we've been promised before that we were going to get more people and more money was raised. In fact, it just happened 3 or 4 years ago, I think it was, that it happened, and it hadn't happened yet. We're in here hoping just as much as anybody else, so don't take this as we're against it. We don't mind supporting as long as there's some kind of an equitable measuring tool that we could use for these fees to be able to see if we're progressing with that. I would say that the inspections are fair across the board. I'm thankful for the guys that bump on the roofs of my houses because I still miss stuff, and I'm thankful that they catch me, and trust me, they're just as fair. They catch all of us, or don't catch us. They find these things, and that's a good thing. Very thankful that they have that. We don't hear as much complaints about the inspections. We've had them rolled over, and it's frustrating, but that's just part of a day or two thing. But the permitting process is that, I'm sure Ms. Tamara and Mr. Chris, they hear this all the time. The permitting process is what really is grinding down in this county and affecting the builders across the board. And that's the biggest thing is, we were promised before that was going to get better, and it has not. If anything, it's gotten worse with this crazy rush that's been going on in construction. So I guess there's an asterisk beside our support, Mr. Peets.
And I don't know what you're going to ask, Dave.
Okay. So are you familiar with because I think it was 2 or 3 meetings ago, we approved a whole new software thing, because that's been my complaint from businesses not being able to get their permits. So we've taken that step, and I think they know we're expecting those to get better. So we did that investment. It's the same system being used by neighboring counties, and I think you're all familiar with it.
Very familiar.
So
and that's thumbs up with that, yes,
thumbs
sir.
up on that.
Yes, sir.
Tambry's already got 3 more on. I'm watching it because my background is my background,
That's right.
and they know, and I deal with small businesses that say, I need my permit so I can open my door. So I can tell you, I'm watching it, and I think the staff's got a good plan to move forward with it.
We very much support that, because that will help. I think, though, Ms. Tamer can probably speak well more than this, that program's great, but you still got to have somebody physically look at these plans and do all that. And that's the thing that's kind of been the glitch or the slowdown or whatever that we really, I wouldn't want her job, because us guys fuss when we can't get permits, and it's backlog across the board right now. Truss engineering, isn't ridiculous? I sound like an old codger now, right? It's ridiculous that we're having to wait 6 and 8 weeks to get truss engineering. We used to get it in just a short little while, and then my engineers got to come in behind them and finish that up. So the whole system is out of whack, and we get that. It's a crazy time we're living in. We've never seen this, but so our support has an asterisk beside it that we're with it if we can definitely see this. $100-something, yeah, there's some homes that it's going to affect, yes, sir. Across the board, I don't think, in all respect to you, Mr. Calkins, I don't think that, you know, they might have a little bit of a downgrade of a light fixture. It's not going to affect the structural integrity of the house for that situation. I will say one thing, if I've got another second. I want to mention about this engineering fee, though, which is a part of this. And I don't know, that's the one that the choking is happening on, that we're getting the big phone calls on right now. Is that a part of this same?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Make sure I'm not overstepping something I shouldn't be walking into. But that's the one that's really got the flags up. $100 and something for a house, yeah, you know, things are just going up, period. Nobody likes it, but that's it. But this thing with the proposal of, and I think the biggest thing we're hearing is the second and third submittal thing, the fact that it's going up $1,000 for 100 lot, it's going up $300 for 30 lot, a couple hundred for 20 lot, and 100 for 10. That, I guess, was swallowed a little bit easier. But this thing of the resubmittals and the amount there, I understand the motive behind it. Mr. Chris and these guys, you know, they get these engineers, they hurry up and turn something in, and they're not doing a full set, they're not doing it right, so they're almost doing some of the engineers' job on certain engineers for coming back and, you know, getting it right, and, you know, y'all need to do this, this, this. So I get that there's some of that going on. I think that in all fairness, though, that's not all across the board from what I'm hearing. I've talked to several engineers even since this has come out, and the good engineers are even concerned about this. I'm not talking about, Mr. Chris knows some of these good engineers I'm referring to. They're concerned about this because even the good engineers are going to have something that's submitted, and this gets into a whole other realm that we don't have time to tonight, but there's some interpretation that's allowed by staff that creates this situation where they submit something and then interpretation comes back and it has to be changed, even on the good engineers. There is a push. I don't want to, again, chase rabbits here, but there is a push even in the state level. I'm involved in the state level of the Home Builders Association on the board, and I'm involved in the Cost and Codes Committee. In that, we heavily look into the Florida Building Code, trying to get this thing manageable across the board so that counties don't have to look at it and put their interpretive value into it. That's probably one of the worst things that can happen to any legislation or anything that's approved, is because when that happens, depending on which eye you're looking out of or from which view you're at, kind of dictates where it's at. And so that, unfortunately, does create some problems even for the good engineers. So I don't know where the middle road is. This is you guys, but we do have a concern that this amount is well above. Of course, Escambia County doesn't charge, but it's well above the others. And
Rebecca wants to comment on that. So.
Yes, sir. So one of the main problems that we see in the engineering department is becoming the QA/QC for not most, but many of the engineering firms. And so in some of the instances, we're reviewing plans 3, 4, and 5 times. And so we can do a comment letter and get 50, 60 comments out the first time. So we're trying to find a way to have the engineers do the work the first time, submit to us, let us review those comments and get back. And this should only ever be one submittal process. And that's one of the reasons why we have the third submittal being so high, because we're staffing. We all know staffing is a big issue. We have been trying to hire for almost a year and a half, and we're just unable to do that. So other subdivisions are taking longer because subdivision A is taking 4 and 5 times to review versus a really good engineer who's going to just get one round of comments. They're having to wait because of all the other reviews that we're having to do. We're always interested in if we want to, talk to the board and review these fees and make some adjustments, that's fine. But it has been about 13, 14 years since we've gone up on our fees. So that $1,000 for the second submittal, it's there intended to try and help my staff and reduce the number of reviews we do. One of the options we had come up with originally was the base fee, including the first and second round, and then the third round of comments, just go back to the original submittal fee. So you can get 1 and 2 comment letters out. After that, we're going to go back to the original fee. So we're open to suggestions, and of course, it's up to the board to make a final determination how they want to adjust.
We heard on a couple occasions of engineers, and again, fortunately, I think I deal with mainly the good engineers from their respect even to you guys. Some of the concern was when they get these notes, review notes, the second round has things on it that wasn't on the first. So it's, again, one of those things where, these amounts of money is being charged, and some of it's very frivolous. Mr. Chris and I had even discussed the notes wasn't in the right location. That's small stuff, and I don't think that this would even be something that they would, make big deal on that part. But the things that are of importance that goes in, and then say, well, you missed this, or we want you to add this. At what point is this, again, interpretive value? What point is it clear across the board to begin with so that they don't have to keep coming back?
How soon do you think, are you having much traction in the legislature? Because this has been brought to me several times by developers that, a signed, sealed set of plans are owned by that engineer till he goes to his grave, from what I understand.
Right.
And then for us to make changes to that or corrections to that, where does that then put the responsibility? So it'd be interesting to know how the legislature's taking that, and I guess, is that years away, months away, or is it just not getting anywhere with it? Just kind of clue me in on that.
From what I'm hearing from it, it still goes back to that engineer with his seal on it becomes liable. Even if, like the county tells them that you've got to do something to this, he has to do it per their recommendation, but it's in line with the code, land development, whatever it is that they're the designing part of it, but it has to be that. Is that correct?
That's correct, but, I kind of go back to, I don't think I've ever seen a perfect set of subdivision plans, and everybody makes mistakes. And one of the reasons for, yes, the engineer is responsible, but we are that extra set of eyes to make sure that we're meeting the land development code. And once it's in the ground and pavement's on top of it, it's practically impossible to go back in and fix it. So having the review process up front is beneficial both to the county and to the engineer of record, because we're kind of, picking his second eyes as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think they're happy for that. This fee is just kind of caught, like, wait a minute.
Mr. Beach.
Yeah. Thanks, Rebecca. I'm an engineer, so I feel I could say this. Things are missed. I think some of the things we talked about doing with these reply letters was annotating which section of the LDC we're referencing. We hadn't done that in the past, I don't think. And we're trying to do that now to work with y'all and go, hey, it's not an interpretation. To me, if there wasn't an LDC reference, then that's an engineer going, well, I think I got a better idea, and we shouldn't do that. And I agree with you 100%. So hopefully we're keeping that fix in where we're referencing that comment where it is in the LDC, and that's why we redid the LDC to do that. I've seen it where, and the bad ones out there. Well, I'm going to throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. And then our folks end up doing the engineering. You could see coming up in Operations and Safety Committee, item number 5. We've been trying to fill an engineer position to help get subdivisions and things reviewed. We can't do it. We've even raised the base pay, and we still can't get them. So now we're looking at $70,000 for 2 months worth of work to help get those reviews and inspections
It's
done.
hard.
It's hard, and this is an approach, and it costs. Unfortunately, it costs.
I feel for these guys trying to get.
So those are the things we're looking at. Like I said, I could tell you we're looking at it, but yeah, garbage in, garbage out. In my previous life, I'd circle the first mistake, send it back, and go, you find the rest. I'm too busy. I'm sure you don't want that option because it could go back and forth. So I think there's a way, Rebecca's doing all she can with this. Hopefully the engineers realize, hey, we can't do like we did in Santa Rosa County anymore and just throw it at the wall and see if it sticks. And we'll work through the bumps, I think. but 5, 6, 7 time reviews on plans where, I've seen it, where comments were just ignored completely, you know, and I've sat at the table with you all on one side and our staff on the other, and neither one's perfect, but we do find that resolution, and I think there's fixes on both sides we'll be able to find with this, so that's just kind of my 10,000-foot view from where I sit, Mr. Lister.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, or, yeah.
That's you.
Yeah, right. That's taking some getting used to. Especially after you're speaking. I'm gonna pretty much rely on Commissioner Peach to work through this because of your experience. I mean, I think we all can lean on each other's experiences, like I did during the committee assignments. And my question, I guess, is what do we charge now for the first go-around?
$150?
For resubmittal fees, $150.
Resubmittal, yeah.
That's the first resubmittal.
First resubmit, all resubmittals are.
And the
$150.
second,
It's
yeah.
pretty well, correct me if I'm wrong, it's pretty well, you're gonna make a mistake.
You're going to make a
Even if
mistake.
you got the good guys that.
Even the good guys.
Even the good guys.
So can we come to maybe a more fair price for the first time and then get really nasty from there on?
How about 20% of the initial submittal fee? And that way it's a sliding scale, if it's a small 10-lot subdivision versus maybe with a minimum of 150. Minimum 150, 20% of the initial fee, and that way if you have a 300-lot subdivision, you're paying that price versus a 10-lot just because of
Is the board
review
willing
time.
to, okay, we got till Thursday to vote on it, so Commissioner Peace volunteered to work with you to get a fair on the first resubmittal, and then after that, I don't care how nasty we get on the ones after that. I'll vote for that. And that, you know, like we're saying, you know, we're doing this, you picked it out, we're doing this to try to call people out from throwing it against the wall.
And that's understandable. It's just that, like we mentioned, there's a lot of good guys that are getting caught in this same thing, and it's not that they're doing trash work, even at the best.
And if on the second and third, it's a legitimate, you know, tug of war, in no better sense of the word, there's an appeal process. They could appeal to you and say, look, your interpretation's here, I'm reading it this way. But if it's just sloppy workmanship, then slap their hand for it. We good with that? All right? We'll keep that on the regular agenda then until, we got one more speaker.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and then I'll go to Commissioner Parker and Commissioner Calkins.
Edwin Henry, 4229 Highway 90, Pace, Florida. Mr. Chairman, may I approach the board?
Please.
I want to talk specifically about a couple of issues, one with the planning department, one with engineering. The master planning process, master permit approval process, I should say, was approved in 2015 in the 2010, I'm sorry, in the Center Rosa County Comprehensive Plan. Implementation of that wasn't began until around 2015-16 when Bob Cole, Commissioner Cole, approached me about what he would do to get this going and asked me to be the guinea pig, which I unfortunately volunteered for. But that process, we had a meeting, Bob, 3-4 months ago, I think, was planning with engineering staff or building staff. And my comments are not to be critical of anybody in an unfair manner, but I do want to be, there's process improvement, processes that get changed sometimes for the wrong reason. Previously, the master permit process included your subdivision and your master plans. You got your subdivision, you got your master plans approved, and no matter where you build those plans in the subdivision, they're approved anywhere in Santa Rosa County. Part of the process also that we established with Rhonda was the plat was a master approval. Every time planning department reviews the lot that I'm going to build a house on in that subdivision, it's a duplicative review. I have a 100-lot subdivision, all lots under flood zone X. All lots have the same building setbacks. All lots have the same zoning. That was part of the process. So when we set up our master plan, they reviewed my subdivision. When we set our master plans for a subdivision, master plans are already approved, build them on any lot, but they still have to review the lot to make sure it complies with all the requirements on the plot plan. But by reviewing all lots at one time, like you do the master plans, you do not have to review the plot plan every time, or the information on the plat. And I'll walk you through this if I can. I may not be doing a good job of explaining it, but I've got the documents here. This is the application. The first one is an application that tells you everything that you have to submit with your building permit, or submit prior to the building permit. The process has changed, and this is why I get back to process management. The process has changed from, and excuse my voice, I think I got to hollering too much at the Alabama-Georgia game Saturday. But the process has changed from where we do an approval of a master subdivision, master building permits, all at one time, and they don't have to review that subdivision information on every lot, to now they are reviewing the planning department each lot before they approve the building permit on a master plan. And it's taken 7 days for the planning department to review that master of that single lot. And then it's about 4 days on the master building permit approval. My point is, the items I highlighted on this application are all things that are on my building permit. There's no need to do it here and then do it on my building permit. Once it's approved by the planning department, then I can apply for a building permit, so it's taken 7 days. And this is the permit here that I get. All the items down at the bottom that are got a red square around, JLUS checked, wetlands checked, archaeological sites checked, Navarre Town Center checked, stormwater problem area, waterfront property review. All those items are shown on the plat of those 100 lots. The flood zone is shown. The zoning is shown. All the setbacks are shown. They can review that one, and that's the way it was set up, Bob. You and I and Dan, when he was the assistant county administrator, we all worked together, set this process up, and it worked that way for 2 or 3 years. We got our permits and our master plan approval in 2 or 3 days. It worked for about 4 years. Then somewhere along through the process, they started requiring a separate submittal, and they're reviewing the same information on each lot 100 times. If I got a 200-lot subdivision, it's 200 times. So there's no need to do that on a master approval. I can see where it's needed for meets and bounds lots, those type of things, but on a subdivision, and 80% of y'all's permits or through projects like I do. I built the subdivision, I'm building houses. So I know how much staff they're needing to hire for this plan review process and planning, which has taken 7 days for one of my building permits. But you guys need to be pushing hard to get as many builders, me, Horton, Adams, and all these guys. Nobody believes in the system because the system changes. It starts out, we start a process, and then the system changes. And that's why I get back to process management. There's nobody managing your processes to make sure they stay consistent, reliable, and dependable. And that's where we need to have a surefire process management system, that things don't change because of one thing that happens somewhere. I don't know what happened and why they changed it, and there's probably a good reason. I know they're all working hard, but the process is easy. Bob, we set it up. It worked for 3 or 4 years through Rhonda, and I'm sure for a portion of time Tammy was there. But reinstitute this process. I'll take care of 80% of your building permits. Somebody's spending a certain amount of time for reason those reviews to get out in 7 days. It's sitting on somebody's desk, or it's going through 4 or 5 people. I don't know. If I went through there, I can map out the process and figure it out, or it jumped the train. But it's easy to throw money at a problem. When I know in my business, when costs go up, I always want to know why. What did you change? Why is it costing more to dig this footer or to nail these nails? So that's my comment on the building permit process. On the engineering process, I can show you here, but I won't pass it out again unless you want to see it. I would like to read a portion of it. We are getting resubmittals on subdivisions. I'll read you one. From a recent subdivision, I've got 3 more just like it. Engineering, the pond boundaries are not identified with a heavier line weight, and the buffer lines have been lightened and dashed. This will provide for the additional clarity requested. Okay, I understand. He wants the lines to be darker so we can tell where the boundary of the retention pond is and the other properties. A new vicinity map from the Santa Rosa County GIS is now being used. We use the same vicinity map been using for 30 years. Okay, well, put another vicinity map on there, not a big deal. In planning and zoning, the note of the 70-foot minimum lot width has been removed. It needs to remove it. That's what the zoning district requires. Do we have to print on these plans everything required in the zoning district? They're going to get a lot more pages if we do that. A note regarding no variances for lot widths less than 70 foot. They want us to add that note. Well, again, the lots are all shown at 70 foot. We can show another note. And these aren't big things, but what's the big thing is about it, I had to pay another $150 resubmittal fee. And they can take another 15 days. And when the land development code was done, we agreed with staff to increase the review time on construction plans to 30 days. That was a request we agreed to. It's a cost of about $4,500, $4,800 per 15-day period. If you get a second 15-day period, another $4,800. Back in 2008, I know this because I was here, I think county staff reviewed less than 10 subdivisions. They could not. Don Salter came to the building department. I think it was Don. It had been you, Bob. I think it was Don. Wanted to know, would we agree to pay higher fees for reviews so they could keep their engineers on, 4 engineers, so they could keep the 4 engineers on staff so when we got busy again. We agreed to that. Now we only have 2 engineers in the engineering department reviewing all our stuff. We've gone up to 30 days. We have 2 engineers. We've already agreed to higher fees in the past. Now they want more fees. And I'll probably be okay with it. Just let's hire some more engineers. You're not going to hire an engineer for $60,000. You're not going to hire one for $70,000. I pay my starting superintendents $80,000 a year. $100,000 is the minimum pay you're going to get an engineer at, fresh out of college. Not much experience, likely. They got opportunities all over this country. So I think you got some hard choices to face. My points I'm trying to make is that it's not the solution. It's not always extra money. Look at process improvement first. Why is it taking longer to stock your inventory when it was the same amount of inventory you stocked a month ago? Why are those guys taking 2 more days? You understand why is it costing more money? What can we do to improve the process. The building, I'll be glad to work on it again, be the guinea pig again. We had a really good system working when we did the electronic permit. We called it then. It was mostly a series of PDFs, fillable out PDFs, real simple, no special software, fillable out PDFs. And I mean, it rolled. It rolled. I mean, these guys didn't have to spend much time reviewing our permits, and we got our permits back, and they could deal with that guy that came in with that individual lot they needed to do. One last thing, I was curious if you guys have figured in the amount of time it's going to take to review the meets and bounds permits in the south end of the county where all these things are going to be required. That's not going to be done easily or simply. It's going to require a site visit by somebody in county staff. You're talking about topographic surveys. You're talking about an engineer going out and review the site. It requires you to discharge that water off that lot to an approved stormwater structure, which that stormwater structure is going to be on county property somewhere. Who's going to identify the approved stormwater structure that water's got to be discharged to? There's a lot of work that's going to have to be done on these meets and bounds engineered lots, I'll call them. And you ain't going to do it with the staff you got now. 3 or 4 people just for that. So just putting that out there, you know, you got some more requests coming, and I appreciate you guys' time. I apologize for my voice. I'm not trying to fuss and be angry, but it is a little frustrating when you set up a process and you take your time as a citizen of the county to help it get it started, and then it just changes, and I have no idea why it changed, but I'd be glad to answer any questions.
I recall setting up that process with Rhonda, and it seemed to be working well, so I'd like to find out where that changed. And
So back in October 1st, the Florida legislature put a time limit on the amount of review, or you would have to start giving permit fees back. So what we did is we broke out the zoning portion of residential building permits out so that it would not overload the time limit left on the building permit phase. Sean has 2 ladies that do a very good job reviewing those permits, 2. Everyone that comes through the county. That was the change. As part of the additional staff that you all slotted for, Sean has already advertised to help get another person in there to try to help us out with that. We also believe that the electronic permitting that you all have approved for us is going to help that go through. I am the process manager for that, and today is the first day. This is the first that I've heard that this is a problem. I guarantee you we're going to look at it very closely, and we're going to take care of the issue, but I'm very disappointed that that has been in place since October, and today is the first day I've heard that that's a problem. We're going to take care of the issue.
what are you hearing today that's the first day you've heard it's a problem? We've had this problem since Rhonda was here, and long before it, people complaining about getting their permits in a lengthy time. Edwin, me, and Rhonda sat down. Edwin showed her the way that they could do electronic permitting, excuse me, because he's building the same house over and over again, maybe 5 houses over and over again.
Absolutely.
They don't have to be reviewed every time. They were put in an electronic process, so when he come in, and I'm putting it in layman's terms, you guys deal with this every day, Edwin does. I'm not a house builder, but I know getting things done. If you brought your car to me and I told you it's going to be 2 weeks before I can put brakes on your car, you're going to be going to Pep Boys or somebody else. Same difference, different, somewhat different, but you know, same thing, the process of getting things done. He sat down with Rhonda, we worked through the system. Now all his plans are on a shelf. House A, B, C, and D. All he has to do is hit the computer and say, I'm building 3 of A, 2 of B, 4 of C. 48 hours he was getting permits after waiting weeks and weeks and weeks. Everything I thought was hunky-dory, I'm calling all the people I know that are track builders saying, get on board with this or else wait in line. If you don't want to wait in line, get on board. Everybody, Milton Rogers, Adams, everybody I knew. And if you don't complain. Either get on board or don't complain. So What happened to getting on board? I encouraged that, and now, well, this isn't working, so we're going to buy a whole new package and start all over again. That's the way I understand it. So somebody help me out here, because it took off and was working good, and then it's fell on its face.
Again, I think some of the delay is because we had to extract the zoning review portion out of the building permit part because of the timing that was legislated on staff, so that we're not having to refund permit fees if we go over a certain amount of time with providing a comment letter. The automatic permitting, the track permitting, where he has, four types of houses that have been approved, absolutely.
And are we doing that today?
That has not changed as far as I'm aware. But again, the zoning element had to be extracted from that. Now, we did, if you may remember, look at the water and sewer availability portion of it, and we combined that for the entire subdivision. So if a subdivision got water and sewer concurrency from the water and sewer provider, we don't require those every time anymore. Again, another effort to kind of speed things up. But having to extract the zoning part of it, I believe is going to be the delay that we're seeing right now. And I'll let Sean talk about it.
Yes, sir, Commissioner. So basically, as Mr. Henry explained, we do have a master plan process. He can come in, he can say, here's my subdivision, here's the type of home I'm going to build. It certainly helps and assists him when he goes to pull those building permits. The issue that we found, unfortunately, is similar to what Commissioner Peach said earlier, and I tell my staff daily, is garbage in, garbage out. Unfortunately, with the master plan process, they were submitting plans, and the majority, we would have times, corner lots, those 15-foot side setbacks were not being built. Certainly, as Chris explained, the master plan process certainly runs through those, but we process applications on when they first come in, on a first come, first out situation. So, I can tell you, I would love to look at my front planning staff and say, hey, if it's a master plan, go ahead and approve it and move it out the door. But I can tell you, with working with, not necessarily Mr. Henry, but with other master plan builders, they are not meeting those setbacks as required by the Santa Rosa County Land Development Code and as implemented on the plat. So that's why my staff has been reviewing those. I can also tell you, we have 10 days basically to review. Certainly, we're getting those in and getting those out as fast and as quickly as possible. But I would love to walk into my staff tomorrow and say, hey, if it's a master plan, we're going to approve it and we're going to move on. That is something we could certainly do. But I guarantee it, what happens, unfortunately, is it's further down the line when Tamri's staff goes out there and her inspectors go out there to look at it, they're going to say, well, you got a 15-foot setback, why are you at 5? Or why, for a side setback, why are you at 10?
Okay, Sean, well, just like we're wanting to punish the folks that got to go 3 and 4 rounds on engineering, when she walks out there and it's a 15-foot setback and they only got 5, guess what? You're not getting a CO. Now you figure out how to tear down that house or move that slab, and pretty soon we won't have that problem.
And like I said,
I'm just trying to get, we all got to work together on this thing and get it out. And I'm trying to put it in layman's terms when you're talking to me. This is your world every day. It's his world every day, and the 5 of us kind of get stuck in the middle of the world every once in a while when we hear the gripe, but try to work with staff. So maybe I'm a little more thick-headed than the rest of y'all, but Commissioner Wright, I think, did I see your letter? Or Commissioner Calkins? So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to say, if you've just heard it today, I've been hearing it for a long time, as recently as last week, as how much time things are taking. And I think we need to put common sense into a lot of this stuff. And another thing that I see is I've heard that we have engineers, and then we have a developer that has an engineer. And what's happening is one is different than the other. One opinion is different than the other. When engineers have to go through school and classes and all those kind of things, and I was looking into liabilities on, how can we fix this? What we need to do is we need to depend on the developer's engineer, I think, and then make them liable if there's any issue, because we would already be liable anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I have been hearing it has gotten better, I believe. Things are getting better as far as the county administrator and the assistant administrator and our staff is more responsive, and I've been getting less complaints, but we have a lot of things we need to fix to make our county open for business. And I'm not against fees per se. The problem is they just keep adding up, like the variance fees. We had a variance, we increased those fees, and then the re-application increased those fees. They just keep going up, and if we did this once in a while, it'd be one thing, but what I'm getting at from the public is it looks like they want to see results. They want to see their results first, and then so I appreciate Mr. Henry bringing these issues to our attention, and I feel the frustrations. I'm frustrated myself, and we'll get it fixed.
Thank you, Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman.
Wright, thank you, Commissioner Parker.
So I haven't heard from any home builder recently about a recent delay going back to around October, but that date is interesting because I have had a couple pool builders, which accessory structures to homes, reach out to me and said something changed somewhere around the October timeframe that has caused massive delays for them on something that was previously appeared to be pretty quick. This is something, obviously, I don't think we're not going to solve this tonight. And I don't think I'm necessarily the person that can provide all the answers. I know I'm not. But if there's something I can do to help, round table this kind of thing, or I mean, Commissioner Cole, I know you've done it before, and Commissioner Peach, I think he's probably better served than I am at doing it. But if there's something I can help with behind the scenes and round table this to try to find a solution, I'm more than happy to do so. I guess one of my concerns as an organization of the size that Santa Rosa County is, you start talking about having a company of 300-400 employees, you have to have some standard operating procedures put in place in writing. And I think if whatever comes out of this, I think what we need to make sure that we do have, if we don't already have it, or maybe they just need to be revised, is some written rules on how we process an application, so that brand new person comes in off the street, whether it be an engineer or an entry-level position, into either the planning department or building department, that says, this is step one of this. So this, applying for a building permit, this is how you walk it through our system as an employee. This is how you do it. In this department, this is how we do it. And I think what that does, I think from an employee morale standpoint, it sets clear expectations. And I think that it makes it easier for them to do their job correctly. And I also think what that does, it takes a lot of that, there's always a certain amount of opinion that has to be put in, there's a certain amount of judgment and discretion that has to be done in just about any job, correct? But in a lot of these situations, if it's laid out very clearly what the rules are and what the expectations are and what the process we use is, I think that speeds it up for everybody. I think that helps not only county staff, I think that helps the resident out there that may be doing their own remodel, and that also helps the home builder, whether it be someone that builds one home a year or 400 a year. I just think expectation management and some standard operating procedures would be wise to put in place, and some type of metrics that we can put in place to say, this is how we did it at this point, and this is what the results were. This is where we are today, and then anything we put in place, whether it be a fee change, a process change, whatever it may be, there has to be some metric put in place that shows this is how we improved, or if we didn't improve, why do we make that change? What do we need to fix it before we let it get too far down the road? That's just my 2 cents from a business perspective.
Commissioner Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last couple of comments. I think the most important, as Colton said, is probably won't solve this today. However, I'd love, even if we have the ability to call special meetings, or as we've done them in the past, workshops where we start tackling this. There's no reason we can't come to a few more, Lord, albeit plenty canvassing boards, and we don't hear that many complaints about that. I'd love to see us schedule a workshop specifically for this as hopefully as quick as January, because it is a huge issue we've heard about for a long time. Now, I agree with Chris, and I think what he was saying, I hadn't heard of this. I didn't know it had broke out. Specifically, I just want to say a few things to say I recognize the delay costs money. I just said I've got 2 permits in the queue on my behalf that I had somebody do. Now, granted, it's within the time frame, and Sean's department did theirs within the 7-day time frame, and you know, you can't call and stomp my feet, even though every day it literally costs me money. They have 30 days to do it. You know, it so happens, like I said, Escambia is different on different things. You know, off-premise, you can get in 1 day in Escambia, and here it may be 2 or 3 weeks for an off-premise sign. I've heard from that industry actually more than from the residential builders of recent, but it changes. Let me just say this, though. I heard Commissioner Calkins say something that concerned me greatly because it was different than my impression, and I may have to call on Mr. Danheiser to weigh in on this. But the concept, and like Mr. Lister said, I know some fantastic engineers that wholeheartedly agree with what Commissioner Calkins said. Hey, it's mine. I went to college. I've got a PE. Nobody should have to review it. And I think we all specifically know one engineer, I know Mr. Henry knows what I'm talking about, that feels very adamantly about that. And I love that fellow. But the thing I'm going to ask Mr. Danheiser to weigh in on is I think, as Commissioner Calkins said, well, they take that to the grave, they're liable. Commissioner Peach, when he talked, he referenced item number 5, because talking about engineering inspectors. Well, I was going to reference item number 1 under operation and safety. We're accepting some money to spend nearly $400,000 to fix some things in Ashley Plantation after Hurricane Sally. Rebecca's given me a study this thick on my desk from Ashley Plantation. And where I need clarification is if we can, and actually we could bring up another subdivision in my district, the brand new Robinson Estates on West Spencer Field. Got a lot of calls. What's the big black thing? The silt thing. I've got 2 subdivisions in my district right now that are under construction that engineers, great gentlemen, but you know what? I've made plenty of mistakes in my life. I know everybody has, especially Mr. Lister and Mr. Henry are both born-again believers, and they know. You know, we make some mistakes, and sometimes we make some errors consciously. And engineers make mistakes. And if it was the fact that we didn't have to have county engineers review them, because the sad part is I've got subdivisions in my district that even with reviews still slipped through the cracks, and it did not work. And I've got engineers that have told me, Sam, I don't care. One particular engineer that I think the world of. And he could never say this because his livelihood depends on it, but he said, you know, I don't care what calculation I give you that says all the water can go in a pond and it's going to be okay. After years, at some point, that pond ain't going to percolate like it did when it was fresh and engineered. So I agree with everybody that comes and says, you know, you can't build a house and put it in a pond and expect in 30 or 50 or however many years that it's going to percolate the same way as when God created the earth and there was trees on it. So the issue of engineering, I'm willing to table it. I appreciate, as you talked about processes improving, I appreciate that DeVan said, hey, look, this past year, we realized we tried something different. We tried where we used to have to vote on this mess the night we heard of it. And now we don't. And if y'all can come to something, and if it is tabling the engineering fees or whatever, I could support that. But the spirit of it, I support, because because I know we've been down there on the same developer, and I know Bob has too, and I won't even have to say who it was. It wasn't in my district, where we had a developer calling commissioners. Hey, engineering's giving me multiple comments, you know, and the developer's calling, and he's pissed off, and we go down there and we meet, and then when we're all in the room, we find out the engineer's dropping the ball. He's doing subpar work. And so I think the need is there to hire more engineers. But one thing I'll say, and it's multifaceted, and it goes back to item 5, not to beat a dead horse, is one of the things we realized the process needed to be improved on is we have addressed with DeVan and Brad that, hey, look, there's a problem and working on it. I know DeVan, has told me that he definitely sees an issue with how you talked about just a couple years ago, we had 4 engineers. We made some strategic decisions that I think, and now we look at, you'll never know if things can be better if you don't try them, but now we look at saying, yeah, we probably should look at increase in engineering staff. It's half of what it was when I got elected. And I'm going to have a big issue when we get to item number 5 with approving that more so than I am these fees. But I'm willing to hold off on the fees. I don't want y'all to think I'm tone deaf. Especially, really, it seems like it's centered around engineering and permitting time more so than inspections or permitting fee. But as Mr. Danheiser said, if it's not commensurate with it, it's a tax. It's not a fee. So I think they have to be in line. But Mr. Danheiser, could you please, if I'm wrong on that, or reiterate
What's the question?
the comment that when somebody does it, it goes to the grave with them and the county's not liable? How is it then that we're having to go back and retrofit subdivisions?
In general, the county's concern is not really liability. We have sovereign immunity on almost all building, construction review issues. It's making sure the problem is fixed. That's the bottom line. And I don't know in what context. If the context is, if the engineer stamped on it, we don't need to review it, well, yeah, but it's a lot easier to solve a problem up front. If it happens at the end, you're never going to solve it. And courts are not going to solve it. 5 years of litigation later and 2 appeals. It's, but you want efficient review as fast as possible to do it correctly. But the liability issue doesn't really connect up with the solving the problem up front issue, because liability does not solve your problem.
And I guess that was my biggest thing is, if we, in theory, just said, well, hey, we're going to go with that concept, and then we have a
their
development.
liability is not going to stop the homeowners from coming to you at your board meeting and complaining if there's a stormwater problem or a road's failed. So,
And if they go defunct or they pass away, unfortunately,
well, even if they're solvent,
who is there to sue to have
even
them
if they're
fix it?
solvent, you're not going to even get to a court for 6 months. So that you obviously, if there's a big liability issue, the county will follow up, but that's not going to solve the homeowner's problem that we're able to sue somebody in 5 to 10 years to get a judgment. So.
Thank you for the clarification. I mean, I appreciate that.
Okay. Edwin, were you finished? You got some? Okay.
We're not complaining. We're not complaining so much about the fees. It's just the continued fee increases without increases of service, levels of service. And we had a process that worked really good, getting permits out in 3 days from the planning review and the building permit side, and now we've taken that to 11 days. The state may have.
You're obviously not going to fix it on the fly. Let staff look at it and tell the board what items can be corrected, if any.
My suggested solution would be to sit down with the industry participants, like we've done before, and fix the issue. I think you sit down with the engineers. I review, and I know everybody's not as anal as I am, but I review every one of the comments you send back before my engineers resubmit it. So I may be an anomaly, but I do see a lot of comments back from the county. Tells me to resubmit on a 3rd resubmittal or 4th resubmittal, and it's, the scale's not on every page. Well, anyway, it's on the cover page. So I think we can work with you guys to get it done, but we're not really complaining about the fees. We just want better service if we agree to higher fees. And we don't want that service to be degraded 2 to 3 years from now. And we've stepped to the plate. In 2008, when y'all didn't review but 10 projects, we agreed to higher fees. So you could keep you guys on, because we want them to be here when things got good.
I think we got direction. Commissioner Peach, I appreciate you working with Rebecca. I don't see this getting done by Thursday. I'm going to say let's table it to the first meeting in January.
Okay.
I mean, it's not that important we initiate these fees within the next 30 days. What's the will of the board on that? I mean, 2 days is kind of crunch time on something this big and this important, so.
I feel like just since you asked, I probably am comfortable with all of them other than the engineering fees. That was the only ones I heard an issue on. That'd be my thought.
All right, can we break it out that way? Is that okay, Demand?
Yes.
Break out the engineering fees, move forward on Thursday with the rest of the fee schedule.
I don't see why that would be a problem. We'll let Chris address that.
We just need to make sure that we have our fees pretty well nailed down prior to going live with our new online program, because there is a whole big payment element with part of that, so that hopefully the program can help calculate those fees so that there's no issue there, and that, it would be much simpler if everything just went together all at one time. I think probably the biggest issue with the engineering fees is that first resubmittal fee being around $1,000. Rebecca proposed not even having a resubmittal fee and really nailing them on that third. If that's really the only sticking point we have as far as the numbers, maybe we can work that out by Thursday.
I'm going to leave it up to Commissioner Peach. If you can nail it down by Thursday, put it back on the agenda. If you're uncomfortable with it, we'll go till 1st January. Okay.
I think we can get really close.
All right. So be it. However, I got to move that to Commissioner Peach's agenda. We'll go from there. All right. We're going to go through a few more, and then we'll take a break here. And at 7 o'clock, we'll take a break for 15 minutes. All right. Medical examiner, facility, professional architectural services. Brad, you want to take this?
Yeah, this is just a holding spot for Thursday's meeting. We will be meeting, the Domes Board will meet tomorrow to review the recommendations from each of the counties, and then I'll bring those recommendations to this board for a decision on Thursday.
Okay. Item number 3 then, these items will all, unless opposed, will get moved till Thursday's agenda for final comments and vote. And if any, I'm going to try to move through them kind of quick, so if any of you guys want to comment, just chime up. Next item is going to be the Judicial Center Complex Amendment 1 for Vermont McDonald Program Management Services. It's the construction time frame has been moved up, or not moved up, but extended a little bit, and this is to cover that program manager services for that complex. Move that to Thursday. Commissioner meeting modification, instead of starting at 8 a.m., we will start at 8 a.m. This coming Thursday. From then on, we'll start at 9 a.m. That gives staff time to get here and brief us before we open a meeting. Any problems with that?
Just, are we still going to have a 4:30, or are we going to go all 9 a.m.?
No, we'll still have a 4:30.
I just want to make sure that's clear for the public.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah, we'll have one evening meeting for the public to get here. Move that to Thursday without objection. Next item is a letter of support, Florida Gulf Atlantic Railroad's capacity expansion project. This doesn't in any way cost anything to the citizens of Santa Rosa County. It just allows them to show that they have support for the application of some funding from the federal government. Comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll move to Thursday.
You're moving these to the consent agenda, correct? You're moving these to the consent agenda for Thursday, if there are no questions?
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah, other than item number 2, no so far. Item number 6 is HMGP application, discussion and approval of hazard mitigation grant program application, the amount of $3,450,000 for Pine Blossom Road north of Country Square to State Road 89 drainage improvements. And then that goes with the next one, which is discussion of after the fact, the task order to Volkert for this application. And the scope of work does not exceed $42,000. And for me to sign the documents, we had to do this because the deadline is coming quickly for that funding. Any comments or questions from staff, or the board?
Mr. Chairman, when you went through, it's hard to hear over here on.
I'm sorry.
It's not your fault, it's just the acoustics we got going on.
Try to get a little louder here.
On number 4, did you go over number 4?
I did.
I understand what you're trying to do there, but the resolution's not saying what is on the description there because the resolution doesn't have the commission committee meetings on the resolution. It just has the regular meetings. I think we need to add in on the resolution that it also will hold the commission committee meetings on the Monday before the first Thursday at 9 a.m., and that's not on the resolution.
Okay, we'll ask staff to make that correction. Are you following? Make that correction to it, and since there is a correction, we'll put it on a regular agenda for quick review. All right. Go down to number 8, which is pretty silly, so I'm going to just move that to Thursday's consent agenda without objection. If anybody has any comments, we'll be glad to discuss it, but we'll just leave it at that. And I'll do so without objection. Okay, and this time we'll go to Service and Development Committee.
You want to take the break first?
Oh, yeah, let's take 10, and then I think the rest of the agenda we can move through pretty quickly. So be back here at 10 after 7. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started so we can get home before my bedtime.
You think?
Hey. I hope so, anyway. All right, I'm going to turn it over to you, Commissioner Calkins, Services and Development Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're going to start out with item number 1, solicitation for document scanning and storage devices. Discussion of solicitation for document and storage devices. Any discussion on this? Seeing no discussion, I move this item for approval without objection.
What?
I move it to the consent agenda for next meeting.
Okay, all commissioners good with that? You ready to back up on it and the need for it and all that good stuff? And Brad, I see you.
Yeah, I guess the main thing is we kind of need to make sure the board understands the amount we're asking for and that we're looking to do this. And if we could give them some kind of standard, as you look through the backup here, we're asking for about $78,000. We've already done some research and analysis and know that the amount of storage we have over at Developmental Services is huge, and we have lots of office spaces that are filled with document storage. So what we're asking you to do is let us go out and do a solicitation for this, but we also need, if we could get a number, we're asking for at least 78 because we know that's probably what it's going to come back, but if we could maybe round that up to 100,000 because engineering also has many documentations that need to be scanned, so we don't have to take up an entire center portion of the engineering department with scanned documents. So I guess if we could just kind of set a dollar amount that we could put in for the procurement services so the people bidding on it know, hey, this is about approximately how much the county is looking at doing business. And then if we want to renew that the following year, we know that the amount that we're going to budget for. Not that we have to budget the same amount next year, but we do know that to solve developmental services, it's going to take about $78,000 this year.
All right, any other?
Yeah,
Commissioner Beach?
And Brad,
Right
right now we scan in, final plans and all that. We keep them for 10 years, right? So every house that's built and everything, and that's a backlog. I mean, I assume it's a backlog where folks want to get the as-builts to their house.
We, in speaking with potential providers, storage of the residential plans, we have to keep those for 10 years. And they also provide document shredding. So it would be set up to where a house plan could be sitting on a shelf potentially. They keep up with where it is in the process. Once it gets to year 10, for lack of a better term, it falls off the conveyor belt into the shredder, and it's just a continuous cycle. Most of the scanning costs that you see here is for the large format plans, and for commercial, we have to keep those for the life of the building, subdivisions, site plans, that sort of thing, same deal. So we're pretty well overrun with paper over there, and we're trying to clear out some room so that we can put people.
And just to tie a knot around this, as we go to this electronic permitting and potentially electronic plan submittal, this will all dovetail together. So eventually we'll get to that point where we're not dodging piles of boxes. And
correct. I mean, I don't think we'll ever get to a point where we have no paper because, somebody's going to come in, a citizen for a roofing permit or whatever. But if we can get started with this initial allocation, we can start seeing the amount of paper decrease, and maybe we can work on, some other departments, HR, and this would be a county-wide thing so that they can begin to have more storage and scanning with the amount of money that you all put together. These contracts will be yearly renewable. If we look at it next year and we figure that we don't need 100,000, we need 50,000, That's the number we're going to come back to you
But
with.
we're still paying by the piece of paper and by the box.
By the
and that,
box.
So it's not going to be, hey, here's 100,000 if we got 20 sheets or we got 50 this year.
That's right.
It's priced out per sheet.
Yeah, this is
per
a very
box.
fluid math
So it's not guaranteed 100,000. It could be up to 100,000.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we needed that to base the solicitation off of, so we give them some target number of what we're looking for in Santa Rosa County.
So they can give their best bid. Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Parker?
I'm glad y'all talked about it, because now I do have a question. Y'all know my first, I guess you'd say, legal job where you're not paid under the table was working for Santa Rosa County as I was getting ready to graduate high school as a student intern when Greg Brown took office in the year 2000. Greg Brown Sr. And he came in, and we all know the awards Greg Brown has won. And one of the biggest things he did was he wanted to digitize. And he hired me and some other students. And this is actually exactly what we did. We were scanning. And we were scanning, obviously, all the information they get from the building department and all. So I guess a couple questions I have is, A, do we have the technology in place, the scanners, that if we advertised for student interns, I'm going to mention two things. One thing, student interns, is that could be your future workforce, that you might pick up some of those folks to work here, or it could be people that then have a positive influence. You know, we put deputies in schools, and we hope that, as you've heard before, it's not just for safety, it's for positive influence. I mean, look, obviously, I must have been positively influenced because now here I am. But you have opportunities for student interns, or I'll also ask, even if it's, you don't have to solicit to say, hey, we wanted this service. You could call a company and say, what does roughly document scanning cost? And then this could be opportunities. We've heard tonight that we are, I mean, not tonight, but in the past, that we've got a lot of employees that are making less than commensurate things. Is this not something we could cross-train employees? And they say, hey, if we want to do this on a same way we're going to pay this company a per box fee, that they could come in and it offer opportunities for them to work on a fee, as whether that be as contractual or overtime or whatever. It just seems like I did it as a 17-year-old kid in high school and other students at Greg Brown's office. And I know you could hire a lot of students and a lot of hours for cheaper than $70,000 or $100,000. And I don't know if we've explored any of that, is all I'm asking.
May I speak? Right now, I pay a temp to do some of our wide-scale scanning, and I just got her on staff about 3 weeks ago. We've had trouble getting staff to do that. We have one large scanner that can take the wide documents. It's actually part of planning and zoning's equipment that we utilize. And then we have desktop scanners that we try to scan the applications and small-scale stuff as it comes in, but just time, we haven't been able to, we process that much. But it's been real challenging to find someone that wants to come to work to scan. And so right now we're focusing on our large-scale commercial plans with this temp to try to get as many of those in that we can, because some of our plans have started to deteriorate. But our goal is to get some of this done at a professional level and more mass quantity. We just produce or take in so much.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Cole? Mr. Chairman Cole?
I can appreciate Sam wanting to save a few dollars, but I think between the liability, the personnel, the storage, everything else, I think we might want to go that way. But I'd, at least put it out there and see, and then Tom can review the.
I mean, in part of this, you need to get the space. You're going to be doing the renovations. You need the space. It's mass quantities. I assume if you thought you could do it as cheap in-house, you'd do it in-house, or if you thought it was feasible. But
we've been trying to do scanning off and on for the last 8 or 10 years, right. And it just comes down to, do we have time?
Yeah, but you'll be having, these are people, that's all they do.
Correct. This so one temp is all, that's all she does.
No, I mean, going out for a company
correct.
To do it. If someone does it for a living.
Yes.
Well, then look what the cost, what's a scanner cost? $10,000, $15,000 for
depends on the scanner.
Big scanner? So
The new engineering scanner costs $25,000.
Okay, there you go. That's a third of the cost.
And Whataburger's paying $15 an hour.
My concern would be, and I know Tom will take care of it, is, their liability of making sure we get our product back if we need it, and that would be in a contract, and that's on you. So I'm okay with it. Move forward with it.
I'm okay with it also. Commissioner Peach?
No, I was just saying with the minimum wage going up and all that, I think, to get this caught up and get it done professionally, you need to rip that Band-Aid off, so I support this.
Absolutely. Any other comments? Seeing no comments, I move this item to Thursday without objection.
I ask that it be on regular agenda. I'm just asking that it be on the regular agenda.
Okay, I'll move this to the regular agenda to Thursday without objection. All right, we're going to go to next item number 2, development services building improvements. Discussion of needed improvements to the building inspections, planning and zoning complex to facilitate workload, online permitting, and additional personnel. What this has to do with is making our building, development services building, a lot better. As I have been to the former Soviet Union, it's like the former Soviet Union, and in order to create a wonderful, positive working environment, I think this will be a great thing for our employees and for the working environment. So, any comments for staff or from anyone in the board? Okay, hearing no comments, I'd like to move this to Thursday without objection. Consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Item passes. Item number 3 is planning Navarre Community Service Access Road trip application. Discussion to submit a Transportation Regional Incentive Program grant for the Navarre Community Access Road Project Development and Environmental PD&E study, and allowing the chairman to sign all related documents. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I move this item to the consent agenda on Thursday without objection.
So moved.
Item number 4 is planning Panhandle Trail Bike Lane trip application, discussion of applying for a transportation alternative program, grant application for the Panhandle Trail Bike Lane project within Santa Rosa County, and authorization for the chairman to sign a resolution of support and all related documents. Any discussion?
Right here. Sean, if you could fill me in on, we've been for years wanting to connect Baghdad and Milton together. And is this funding that we could apply to that? Because, I just, tired of getting bumped to the back of the train, I guess. So.
Yes, sir. So I believe the design for that segment from Milton to Baghdad is actually in the FDOT work program for, I believe, is FY24. If you recall, we previously went to the district and asked them to advance that funding, and they said no, not at that time due to COVID, and they weren't sure of the potential downfall and things associated with that. So the funding is there to do the study. I mean, obviously, we have 3 bridges that are going to have to be looked at, and we'll have to do some bridge analysis on it, but it is in the FDOT work program.
Any more discussion by the board? Hearing no discussion, I move this item to the consent agenda this Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Thank you, and that concludes the Services and Development Committee. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Operation and Safety Committee, Commissioner Parker.
Thank you. The first one's about a pond blowing out at Ashley Plantation, as I mentioned, after Hurricane Sally. This is a contract to Site and Utility LLC, $389,715 with the 3% contingency. Included, this is FEMA reimbursable. If there's any questions, I'd tell you to ask them to Rebecca. If not, I'm comfortable in moving it to the consent agenda.
So moved.
Item number 2 is discussion about change order number 6 in the amount of $3,150. Benny Russell Park improvements. This is also related to stormwater. We found out needs to be a small modification. If there's a question, address it to Rebecca. If not, we'll move it to, I'd recommend, consent agenda.
So moved.
Item number 3 is discussion of 2 10-foot drainage easements and temporary construction easement for construction of drainage repairs as part of the Cove Road Emergency Watershed Project. And authorize chairman to sign documents. Rebecca can answer any questions. If not, I recommend consent agenda.
So moved.
Item number 4 is discussion of task order number 4 to DRMP for construction engineering and inspection services for Edgewood Drive roadway and drainage improvements, $118,008. Rebecca will field questions. If not, it can go to consent agenda.
So moved.
Item number 5 is about a task order number 7 to Volkert to supplement engineering department with subdivision and general engineering inspections during our personnel search to fill the current vacancy. I think this is a big dovetail with the horse that we've beat tonight about our engineering and our lag and our lack of workforce. They're asking it to be not to exceed $70,000 to equate 2 months of service. I know I did have a question that I wrote myself here earlier that clearly this is just for 2 months, but if there's not an expedited plan for the in the interim, then we'll probably be right back here 2 months later. And I'm just going to tell you before I'm comfortable voting on this Thursday, thank God we don't have to vote on it tonight, but I guess I'm really just asking DeVan, is there a plan that realistically is going to be in place that if we do this to buy a couple months that we look at? One of the things I touched on tonight that you mentioned, we have engineers on staff that we're not utilizing the full extent of their engineer capabilities that we were in the past, or are we looking at considerably increasing the fundings based on this, or what's the plan that we can get away from? Because we definitely can hire some good engineers for less than the rate of $35,000 a month. We could bring somebody on staff or 2 people on staff. And so that's my only hiccup.
And this particular item is for inspectors. We're not specifically paying them $35,000 a month. We're paying them for however many inspections that we need to have done so Rebecca can keep her plans moving. And Rebecca, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but we already have applicants for these positions that she needs to fill. And hopefully, we may not even have to go 2 months. We may have people on staff. This is just to be sure we don't fall behind with our inspections on subdivisions. And so that's what this item relates to. In relation to your other question, Brad and I are still looking at that. We are hopefully going to have some things for y'all after the first of the year to discuss on where we go, because we do know we've got to backfill those positions, but with it's going to be a matter of finding the person that's the right person for those positions. Was any of that incorrect, Rebecca?
I just want to clarify the inspection services. So the vacancy that was left is just the guy comes in at 8 o'clock in the morning and he goes out and inspects subdivisions all day long. That's all he does. We currently have, I think, 35 subdivisions on the books that are under construction. And so this is for 2 full-time inspectors, 40 hours a week. They will be traveling anything that comes up, citizen complaints, subdivisions. We do have the Ashley Plantation. They'll be handling the construction inspections for that small project. So this is just all inclusive of inspections minus the large capital improvement projects. So this will be for 2 inspectors, 40 hours a week until we can hopefully we'll fill that position very quickly. We do have some applicants, but this is just in the interim to do those inspections.
And I do see, and I appreciate y'all putting on there under the fiscal impacts, that it's already out of the engineering personnel department budget. So if it's already budgeted, I'm comfortable with this as long as there is a plan to know that obviously I don't think the budget would satisfy if we had to continue this much longer than we're doing. So that was my question. I appreciate the answer with it. With that, I'm comfortable if there's no other questions or comments, moving that to consent agenda.
So moved.
Item number 6 is a discussion of supplemental services to Volkert for P Ridge Connector construction, engineering, and inspections and extended construction administration in the amount of $216,086 and authorize chairman to sign. Rebecca could field any questions. If there's no questions, I'd recommend consent agenda.
Do have a question on that, and actually both of them. Are they open-ended, this 216,000? If we get these other people on board, we don't need to expend those funds, is there any penalty to Volker? Are we obligating ourselves to a certain amount of time? Like in a month, we got people on board and we can say, hey, guys, we appreciate it, but we don't need you for the next, we don't need.
So this is kind of that part of that, because it's a large capital improvement project, we do like to have a inspector. Our inspector previously was doing this at 20 hours a week. It was just too much, and that's one of the reasons why he left, because he was doing all subdivisions and the P Ridge Connector project. It was just too much for one individual to task, and so I've requested for Volker to take over that inspection 20 hours a week to the duration of the P Ridge Connector project.
So is that a not to exceed?
No, this takes us through the end of the project, which is scheduled for January, I believe.
So it's a lump sum until
Yes, sir, it's a lump
completion?
sum. Yes, sir. It is not to exceed as well, but it is a lump sum. So
When's the estimated completion?
January 23,
So about a year?
about a year. Yes, sir.
Okay, or a little over a year, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Make the motion to move it to consent agenda.
So moved.
Item number 7 is discussion of change order number 4 for P Ridge Connector in the amount of $31,367.58. And there was a discrepancy between the agenda and the backup. The agenda actually says they were asking for 14 days, but the backup says the recommendation is for 2 days to the existing contract. I think that's the only clarification that I'm going to look for. Action needed says they're asking for 14 days. Recommendation says they're asking for an additional 2 days. On the backup.
This is for a design contract. I'm a little confused on the 14 days.
Item number 7.
I'm sorry. I already marked that one as complete. It will be for, let's see.
This is change order number 4. The first sentence is 14 days. They both have the same dollar amount. It's just.
The 14 days is correct. I apologize. Yes, sir. It's the 14 days.
Okay. All right. So the agenda is correct when it says the amount and the additional 14 days to the existing contract and for chairman to sign all related documents. If there's any other questions, we'll go back to Rebecca. If not, I'd recommend moving it to consent agenda.
So moved.
Item number 8 is task order number 2 to Coastal Tech for design of the Oriole Beach boat launch and parking improvement for $107,323. If there's no questions for Rebecca, I'd recommend.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
And this is Commissioner Wright's district, so I'll direct it to you. If we're going to spend $107,000 just to get designed and all that stuff, we know the package is going to probably be around $1 million or so, could be even higher. And looking at the aerial, I haven't been down there, but looking at the aerial, it's not a really big area, really big boat ramp. I was wondering if a more prudent way to do it would be do an RFP or RFQ on the ramp portion itself just to companies that do that work. And then once they're finished, have our forces go in and redo the parking lot.
Well,
That's your call.
And I appreciate your comment on that. We've got a number of issues at Oriole Beach boat launch. So as you said, from an aerial standpoint, you get about 14 parking places with truck and trailer there right now. I've had some conversations with staff about possibly finding a way to, if possible, if a seller would be willing to acquire some neighboring property for additional parking to make that a more capable launch. That launch is constantly overrun. I think the main reason why we're asking for this right now is the launch was wide enough, the ramp was wide enough at one point for 2 boats to be launched simultaneously. It had become in such disrepair that one side wasn't even being used anymore. So everyone was going to the one side they could still launch. Due to the boaters' habits of power loading the boats and the type of construction that the ramp was done, that side then became even more undermined and began to fail. We've had a number of people break their ankles in the water standing on the boat launch there and just fall into some cracked spots. I've seen axles on vehicles get ripped right out of a 3/4 ton Dodge pickup. So it's costing the residents a lot of money in damages. And we, conversations we've had, I even brought to staff's attention, possibly using a cantilever precast system that would do away, similar to what Navarre Beach Boat Ramp has. So it's a system that will cost us a little bit more up front if we were to do it, but not a situation where we're going back in 10 years, 15, even 20 years and having to worry about rebuilding this ramp again because of undermining of sand and everything being washed away underneath it. So it's something we've discussed, and I think we also have some erosion issues there. Right now it's gravel and sand, and it's washing into the sound. And we know the issues we have with seagrasses. And these heavy rains, it's washing all that directly into the sound. We even had to go back and have staff repair some ADA improvements that have been put in place because the water was undermining that sidewalk. So this is something I really pushed for, and with Rebecca's help, and I think it's necessary.
If I might, and they're doing all the permitting too, as I look through the task order, because there'll be a lot of permitting. So.
Commissioner Wright, I don't know if you and staff have already discussed this. Obviously, it shows a deficit of $72,323 that the board has to give staff direction on where to get that funding from. First two things that popped in my mind, because it says $35,000 is coming from Marine Advisory, which I think is all the boat registration stuff. Are we looking at Parks and Rec or LOST, or I know we got to give board direction on Thursday, but I guess I'm just starting that conversation.
I think general fund unassigned. But the Marine Advisory Board, in that particular fund, they have almost $250,000. Perhaps we should go back to them and ask for more funding.
Yeah, they had at a previous meeting authorized, I believe, $35,000.
Was that just the recommendation, or did anybody ask for more? I know we got a lot of other boat ramps and issues, but I guess between now and Thursday, I'm going to ask you to, since it's your district, if you'll come back with the proposal of how, that's the question mark on the backup, is just what fund do you think is best if we ask them for more, or I even like it LOST more than general unassigned, but general unassigned obviously comes from, in my mind, I think about it as like a property taxpayer in the north end of the county that may not use it versus an LOST, but
there's a MAC meeting
by
tomorrow.
Thursday, we got to have staff direction.
There's a MAC meeting tomorrow, so we can certainly circle back and discuss that with them. We'll discuss that.
Okay, so I guess we just need to leave it on Thursday's regular agenda because we'll have to vote on the funding source.
Yeah, and also the revenues in lost have been robust. That's another source we certainly could use.
I think it clearly falls under LOST recreation, so. All right, any other questions or comments? Commissioner Calkin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to let you know, appreciate all the work Commissioner Wright has done on this. This is something that is needed, and I will support this item. And I don't mind where it's all the same money, in my opinion. So you'll move it around, whatever you got to do, just get Commissioner Wright his boat launch. Thank you.
All right, I'd recommend we move it to Thursday's regular agenda.
So moved.
Item number 9 is discussion to purchase mitigation credits for Edgewood Drive Road and drainage improvements. This would be from the Pensacola Bay Mitigation Bank in the amount of $29,150, and authorize the chairman to sign. Is there any questions or comments on that item? Hearing none, I'd recommend we move that to Thursday's consent agenda.
So moved.
Item number 10 is discussion of rejection of bids for the Navarre Beach waste valve replacement project. Basically, it comes in, they're recommending that because The bid amount exceeded the engineering estimate by over 200,000, so I'm guessing they're going to want to go back out for rebid or go back and modify the solicitation or something at some point.
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay.
We'll potentially bring it back to you at another time.
All right. Thank you. And so I'd recommend that we move that to Thursday's consent agenda to reject the bid.
So moved.
Number 11 is about a lease of a Caterpillar landfill compactor. You can see here where it's pre-negotiated in the details. It's 48 months, 10,000 equipment hours. A lease agreement in the amount of $15,056.48 monthly. If there's no questions or comments, I'd recommend that to go to Thursday's consent agenda.
So moved.
Item 12 is task order with SCS Engineers to perform electrical upgrades and generator connections to the central landfill LFG system flare station and existing electrical panels. If there's any questions or comments on that, we'll field them. If not, we'd recommend Thursday's consent agenda.
So moved.
Item 13 is change order number 5, requesting 43 additional days to Green Simmons for the Navarre Park project. Commissioner Peach.
Yeah, this one, I actually met with the president of the company this afternoon, and I'll be out on site tomorrow, so I'd like to move this to the regular agenda so we can finalize this once and for all to get this project done. It's just like our other ones with change orders and things, but we'll be on site tomorrow discussing the playgrounds and things like that, so I'll bring potentially additional information back Thursday if we could just move it to the regular agenda.
All right, recommend, Commissioner, if no other question, I recommend move it to regular agenda.
So moved.
Item 14 is, if you read the backup, basically when we made the decision to do the HVAC replacement at the jail, there was one part that was accidentally left out of the bid. So to upgrade this for an additional 15 tons is $118,200. The good news is that money is available under contingency, if I remember correctly from the backup. If there's questions or comments, we'll get staff to address them. If not, I'd recommend moving this to Thursday's consent agenda.
So moved, but I do have a comment. I've seen recently where I think it's Okaloosa County that's using inmates and they're training them to run equipment where they get some education and possibly don't have to make a revolving door situation out of where they're at. And I think our citizens would like to see them fellas, instead of sitting in air conditioning, out learning something. And I know that's the will of the board, and I know staff is trying to work with that, but even if they're out there picking up trash, that's where they need to be. So, thank you. And I'll move that to the consent agenda.
Item number 15 is a discussion about Gulf Power asking for an easement to do some tree trimming, cutting, and removal. This is actually pretty typical with what they're doing with a ton of property owners in the area along Highway 90. They compensate us $300. If there's any questions or comments, we can refer to the proposed agreement. If not, I'd recommend moving to Thursday's consent agenda.
So moved.
Item 16 is more administratively. This is to change an agreement between Santa Rosa County and J. Miller Construction. J. Miller has now changed to C.W. Roberts, I think is the only real change, if I remember right from the backup. I'd recommend moving this to Thursday's consent agenda.
Before we do that, what do they do for us? Anybody?
Isn't that a park? That's some park construction, isn't it?
I know J. Miller has done sidewalks for us before.
I think it's for a park project that was previously awarded. They just got bought out by a different company.
Okay.
Isn't that a park? Which park?
Thank you.
It's a park y'all previously approved.
Okay.
Just soon afterwards, they got bought out by another company before they signed the contract.
Okay.
So,
all right, well, so moved then.
Item number 17 is discussion of purchasing the following fire apparatuses, or for layman's terms, fire trucks. East Milton Fire Department wants to get one from Pierce, and Baghdad Fire Department also wants to purchase one. I believe from the backup, we're showing that $500,000 per fire truck will come from local option sales tax as recommended by the LOST board, and the additional will come from the fire MSBU, which is, it wasn't a lot. I think the first one was like an additional $11,000, but any questions Brad will take. He is our resident fire expert.
We also have Tom Lloyd in the back, and
I actually thought it was part of the, you were just hanging out. Tom, if you want to come talk, come on up. I mean,
I don't
big
know.
shiny red things with fire hoses. I got that.
We're good, Tom. We're buying these for Navarre Beach, Holly, Navarre. We all promised them the 500, so it's just,
Yeah.
they're all coming in different.
Commissioner Parker, for the record, I did ask if Mr. Lloyd was going to come to future meetings, that he bring some brisket or pulled pork. So
That is that's
maybe
a manly-looking beard back there tonight.
If our chairman could force the issue on that, I'd appreciate it.
All right, well, as I said before, everybody loves firemen, and my best friend's a firefighter over for the city of Pensacola, and we used to joke, that's even what policemen grow up and want to be firemen, so. Okay, I'd recommend we move that one to the consent agenda for Thursday.
So moved.
Items number 18 through 27 all deal with road paving, either from gas tax or local option sales tax, and this is for all 5 districts. And these lists were put together by our acting Public Works Director, James over there. If you have questions, now would be the time to ask, and we can relay them to him. Otherwise, I would recommend that we move all those
Commissioner Parker?
items to Thursday's consent agenda.
Just one thing, item number 26, I'm sure it's just a typo, but it says District 5 gas tax paving, and it says discussion of paving resurfacing of District 4 roads.
No, that's actually Commissioner Peach. He's coming up on an election year. And so we need to get him some extra paving. And
Just so we're all on the same page.
I don't, so. All in the details. Okay, so yeah, obviously the typographical error there, if we would just have staff notate that when they move it to the consent agenda for Thursday, just obviously under 26, it needs to say District 5 roads. And if there's no other comments, I'd recommend we move again 18 through 27 to the consent agenda.
So moved as corrected.
Good job. Item number 28 is discussion about the road striping services. This is with Gulf Coast Traffic Engineers for them to do road striping services as they come up. If there's no questions or comments, I'd recommend we move this to Thursday's consent agenda.
No, okay, no questions, so we'll move it. So moved.
Item number 29 is discussion of contracting with Ingram Signalization Incorporated for traffic signalization and street lighting maintenance and repair. If there's no questions or comments, I'd recommend we move that one to the consent agenda.
So moved.
And item number 30 is a discussion of a contract with Gulf Power to install lights at the newly constructed bridge on Hamilton Bridge Road. If anybody has any questions on details, we'd be glad to address them with me and Brad. If not, I'd recommend we move that to Thursday's consent agenda.
So moved.
And that concludes my committee.
All right, Commissioner Wright, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Discussion of the approval of the check register. I've reviewed it. I assume everybody else has, unless anyone wants to have a lengthy discussion on the check register tonight or Thursday. I would move that we put that on the consent agenda for Thursday without objection.
So moved. Following is the upcoming meetings. Those meetings are listed for you. Marine Advisory, Building Code of Adjustments, Commissioner Regular, and Commissioner Special. They're all on our website and on hard copies. And one other thing I'd like to go over before we leave today, because we got one more meeting, just clarify with the board and see if I got support, will of the board. There was some discussion early on when Brad and Devan were brought on board as interim and when we would revisit that. And my suggestion right now, with the way things are going, the smoothness I'm seeing we're getting, and of course with new county attorney on board to help with everything, I suggest we put that off until March, April timeframe, and that way the public knows, these gentlemen know, and we're all on the same page together, because I think early on it was maybe January, February timeframe. So I'm good with maybe April if we need to.
Yeah, I realized my mic was still on. I didn't mean to have it keyed, but, so I apologize for that, but just since it already is, yeah, I would support continuing the interim basis through March with no problem.
Mr. Chair? Thank you. I think we need to make them permanent now, as soon as possible. I think they've been doing a fantastic job, and, you know, to have certainty, you know, I think it's very important. So I would recommend, you know, January 1st meeting, we get it on the agenda and we make, you know, DeVan and Brad permanent. That's my recommendation.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Parker.
Yeah, I actually had Navarre Press call me last week and asked me about this issue, and I told the press, and I'll say it now, when I talked to DeVan and Brad, I talked to them like they're permanent. I don't even think about them being interim in those positions anymore. So as I told the press, the way I look at it is I fully intend to cast my vote when the time comes, and whenever that is, as sooner or as latter as it comes, that both of those gentlemen stay in their current capacities as a permanent capacity, just as the same way we did for Mr. Danheiser to be permanent, not interim. I think they're doing a great job, and I'm not trying to put the buggy ahead of the horse, but I've so far heard a lot of good things about James over there in our Public Works Department, and I think that's probably too premature to say, you know, that necessarily he's going to fill that role, but I will say that absolutely, so far I've heard very good things, and I know in my dealings with him, he's been very responsive, and so I hope that we can continue to move forward with making some of those positions permanent and take that looming thought of, hey, we're going to go out and I might not be there away.
Mr. Peach, I see you itching at that button.
No, I agree with you. I was just going to have one more meeting while I got the mic. The Florida Alabama TPO Wednesday morning, 9 a.m. I think the folks along Highway 90 will be pleased about some lighting projects that got moved up. So I just wanted to add that. But no, I back all the comments from my fellow commissioners on the personnel.
Anybody want to make a motion to put it on Thursday's agenda?
The county administrator position? Yeah, I'll make a motion to put the county administrator and the assistant administrator on Thursday's agenda.
I got a motion.
I'll say.
This is to extend the interim to March, is that the discussion?
It's to make y'all permanent. That's the motion.
We're trying to do it before Christmas there. That way Brad can feel good about that new purchase.
I appreciate
he's
that,
wanting
but
to
that's
make.
going to take some time because we'd have to work through contracts and that kind of thing. If you'd let Mr. Danheiser and Brad and I work on that and get back with you in January, because we're good till February. It's our interim period.
He's starting out like
That'd be
a
okay
college
with the
coach
board?
down there. He's talking about contracts and
You guys are all-
attorneys reviewing. That's fine. I'll withdraw my second then. We got to make sure you don't have one of them Dan Mullins exit things.
That's the new word for it now. All right, well, we're, I'm going to add it on the agenda on early January, so I would recommend that y'all get something nice and pretty and bring it back to us. Thank you. But y'all are doing a great job, and I believe the community, the board, we are all proud of you. I mean, look at this audience. Look how many people are here. Thank y'all.
Okay. And one other thing, Commissioner Peach and I went to the Estuary Council meeting the other day over in Gulf Shores, and weren't very happy with the response from our fellow Escambia County commissioners, Bender and Underhill, and the rest of the board all thought that the new administrator, is that?
Said he's not eligible.
Huh?
They just changed it. They're saying he can't be the director.
Okay, we continue to be, anyway, we can't talk about this, we all know that sunshine stuff, but Escambia County continues to fight the other members of the board on putting Matt Posner in that position, and I think I have the will of the board, or at least two of us up here, to ask our new county attorney to look into that and make sure that now Commissioner Peach just got an email saying he's not qualified, even though the whole board, except for two from Escambia County, have elected him to be the director of that Estuary Council.
Get with me and I'll look into it.
Okay. And I want to get that out to the public too, how much of a pain in the butt they're being about it. So I can't figure out a nicer way to put that. So, all right, anything else to come before the board this evening? Anything else from the public? If not, we are adjourned.
We got this email. Chip's come back and says, oh, he's not qualified. And Escambia County controls the money.
Yeah, I'll go, yeah.